everybody. Welcome to Nerds and Heresy. We have Jegaysus in the house tonight. Hello.
Hi.
So the topic for today, as we have on the sidebar here, is the LGBTQ plus in the Bible, just references to homosexuality, their original intent, what they mean, and maybe we'll get into some fun stuff like the divine logos and the goddess Sophia. And I don't know, we should just go through, you want to give your intro real quick, Matt?
Yeah, so I am Jegaysus. You may know me from TikTok. A lot of people coming into the chat, hopefully. Essentially, I have a character in which I represent my homosexuality, and also I look like Jesus, or more so I should say the Da Vinci's lover, Jesus, that many people are familiar with, the white god. We're aware Jesus wasn't actually white, but I'm going to take that and roll with that. And I basically try to spread different alternate theologies, different outlooks and ways to look onto things. Just because growing up in an American Christian world, you see a lot of different thoughts and theologies and doctrines that are put into the Bible that aren't necessarily in the Bible. And that's always been frustrating because people use that for hate. So I like to break down things in terms of what the actual context was, what meaning was, or what was never even said that just magically appeared. Cough, cough, Trinity. Yeah. and just kind of breaking those things
well,
down.
By the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
The way you explain things is very clear and concise, and you definitely know what you're talking about. So tell us a little bit about that. How did you, what's your background in the church? How are you so well educated on the topic, it seems?
Yeah, so I always like to say I'm not. Just pre-warning to everyone, I'm not a theologian. I didn't go to school like Dadpool here. So I don't have any kind of formal background, but I was raised in the church as Southern Baptist. We left Southern Baptist denomination probably around 11 or 12 due to a scandal in the church, and started going to different non-denominational churches and figuring all that out. In terms of like my new current project, now that I'm doing Jegaysus, I kind of just research as I go. I see what questions are out there, or I'll read one article and run scholarly context, and then it'll trigger another story, and I'll jump over to that and try to research that subject more. I like to say, like, probably the reason why it's easy to understand on my TikTok is because I'm learning it for the first time myself a lot of the time. So I just build a lot of different bridges and connections, and that's probably my super talent. Not so much being able to give off scripture or repeat it, but more so remembering different pieces of different chapters and putting them together. But yeah, it's just like a new exploration for the Bible. I feel more liberated now without any kind of church over me to go through and actually read scripture and not see it as, I don't know, something I have to follow, so that frees me up to really dig into different interpretations without the fear of doing it wrong. If that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't have any kind of formal background either, so like there's stuff that I talk about that Ricky had even said that he'd never even heard, having gone to school before.
Sure.
So what they teach you in theology classes is really surface level, I think.
Yeah, you're taught how to defend your theology. You're not really introduced to everything outside of, that teaching. So yeah, there was new things that I learned from Mason that I really enjoyed researching myself. You don't need a degree. You don't need to go to school to be well educated on a topic at all. So yeah, I enjoy guys like Matt and Mason who can riff with me.
When you were going to school, Ricky, was it to become a preacher, or what was your overall end goal?
Yeah, I wanted to be a pastor, and I wanted to be able to debate atheists on apologetics, ironically enough. And I just debated a Christian yesterday.
Which was very good, by the way.
No,
I saw that one.
Yeah,
anyone hasn't seen that debate.
Yeah, I struggled a lot with the I didn't know the second round was a Q&A. Normally there's the second round is a rebuttal to the first round. So I had a 10-minute rebuttal prepared, and they're like, oh, I don't get to use any of this. We're just doing it. And I had no questions prepared. Yeah. So it threw me for a bit of a loop, but I finished strong. Everyone's telling me.
I think, can we address that briefly? Because like, I like whether or not Bram's a smart kid. You know, he certainly seemed eloquent, but he was using like debate tactics, which I guess is fine for a debate, but it seems disingenuous to an extent because like it was very Ben Shapiro-esque. Like he was setting you with those hypotheticals that like then forced you to take a position on them and then hit you with that position as if that was the actual position you had.
Yeah.
So that was regarding specifically the thing that I saw was regarding Jesus's tomb. If indeed he was removed from the tomb, like, oh, would these devout Christians, Jews technically at the time, would they have removed Jesus from the tomb? Because that would have been heresy. That would have been disingenuous and evil and yada yada. And it's like, was there even a tomb? This is
We're gonna start with the beginning.
So, like whether or not who would have stolen it, that's all irrelevant to the fact that there's very little evidence that Jesus ever even existed as a person. And if he did, these stories that are told about him,
What's up, Oz?
probably didn't happen.
There's one thing I wish I'd thought to say, and that's when I brought up like the Miracle of the Sun and the Mormons and how many eyewitness testimonies to all these things that we have, and he goes through them with a fine-tooth comb and tries to discredit them as hard as he can, but he is all too willing to give the Gospels the benefit of the doubt. It's like if you would use the same standard that you're using for these other things.
And that ties into why I'm a pantheist, as far as like whether or not these mythologies and legends are true. They're true to somebody, and they are somebody's truth. So that you can extend that. Oh, well, you give these the Gospels of Mark, Luke, John, Matthew. You give them the benefit of the doubt, but then like other spiritual, religious, any kind of sources like that. Oh, well, that's from demons. That's from Satan. That's from the devil, which is a concept they don't even fucking understand. So that shit irritates the piss out of me.
So Matt, what else do you like to do for fun, man?
What I like to do for fun? Ugh. Well, right now I just pretty much do TikTok, school, and work. I don't know if you well, TikTok's, I guess, the fun part of that. If I weren't so bogged down on time, I like to read. I'm a reader. And just a lot of TV. I originally moved to LA to, pursue acting and do that whole career. So the majority of my time spent just like watching movies, absorbing movies.
Which I saw
TV.
One of your TikToks, you were on the set filming something, like a music video, was it?
Yeah, my friend, Mother Victory, has a music video coming out and needed somebody to jump on the song, so I did a verse for that. It's all on Spotify. It's called The Crowning of Mother, and it's me as Jegaysus rapping poorly, but it's good.
What was it called again?
Check it out anyways.
The Crowning of Mother?
The Crowning of Mother. Kind of a play on words with, birth. And also crowns, because there's a lot of crowns. His verse is great. His verse is amazing. He's a really good rapper. His music is all gay themed. But yeah, so we went to LA. I did a music video. It was fun. So that's going to drop sometime soon. I don't have a date, so stay tuned for it. Mother Victory is also on TikTok if you want to follow him. I'm sure there'll be an announcement at some point, and I'll announce it on my page when it comes out.
Cool.
I look forward to it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat asked what you're going to school for. It was Natalie.
I have no idea. I am 30, and I decided during the pandemic, I was like, I need to do something with my life, or at least just pretend I am. So I just started taking classes again. I dropped out when I was 18 and moved to LA. And when I dropped out, I was going to school for sociology with a focus on human sexualities. And I wanted to get into like data science on that side to just like kind of explore, not really anthropology, but more, I don't know, statistics. That's, I guess.
Crazy. When I was 17 going to 18, my first major in school was psychology.
Nice.
And I took school for a year, went in the military, came out, and changed my major to computer science. Okay. And then when I really leaned into Druidism, I changed to environmental management, which there's a reason for that. But so that's weird that you were into sociology, and my first Mason can't multitask. What Mason miss? I can multitask. How dare all of you? No,
Thanks,
but that's
Jim.
kind of crazy to me that you did sociology and at the same time, because we're roughly the same age.
I feel like there's a certain kind of person, like in terms of like people who are driven to the psychology and sociology field. And I've noticed that a lot too with like actors. There's always going to be like, I don't know, I'm just going to make up numbers. 60% of actors or something go to school for sociology or psychology, just saying that they are drawn to the study of the human brain. And that's what makes them also want to dive into characters and do different kinds of mindsets. So I think it's a certain kind of personality trait.
That makes sense. And going to school is a very good use of the pandemic. I started painting Nerf guns so they're post-apocalyptic. That's what I did for the pandemic. So yeah,
that is also beneficial. And do not cut yourself short. You can take that somewhere.
Yeah, whatever works.
Etsy. You could start an Etsy of Nerf guns.
We talked about that because somebody commented on a video that I did. I have a new fun toy we don't need to talk about, but it's the Buster sword, and it's wooden. And somebody was like, Dadpool could make that for you. It's like, if you wanted to start an Etsy shop selling these, this cost me $60. But there were like 10, 15 people in the comments on that first video that were like, I want one.
It's getting very OnlyFans up in here, but
well, I didn't say what it was for there, Matt.
Maybe my mind just goes there. It's the Jesus in me. Just assumes the sin at first.
Was Jesus a masochist? That makes the action completely different.
He was good at getting nailed.
It went too far.
Did we take it too far?
Oh, maybe just a little bit.
Maybe that's the drinking game. Every time we go to hell, we should take a sip.
No, I'm saying that the crucifixion went too far.
The crucifixion?
Yeah.
Crucifixion.
Yeah.
Crucifixion.
Crucifixion. That's Matt's brain for you. He did indeed get nailed. Okay, so we're here, though, to kind of get into certain topics of homosexuality in the Bible and why. So here's the thing. Insults don't make sense as a thing that Christians should use. And phobias of any kind, homophobia, racism, bigotry, those that Christians shouldn't be doing that for a couple different reasons, right? Like the greatest commandment is love thy neighbor. And so what I talk about quite often, what comes up in my TikToks is that when Christians are trying to defend their hate, when they quote the Bible to defend their hate, they never quote Jesus. They never quote Jesus. They quote the Old Testament and they quote Paul.
Always Paul.
And here's the thing is like they're even taking Paul out of context or even out of his intent, I should say, because the context is there, but it's wrong and there's mistranslations that we can get into. And I know when we talked about this before, Ricky, you kind of got into it about Paul being an Old Testament scholar and what his intents were in Corinthians. So there's two mentions of homosexuality in the entire Bible as the word homosexual now in the English, and it's 1 Corinthians 6:9 and 1 Timothy 1:10. And the word in the Greek is arsenokoitai, which has been translated as pedophile in other versions of the Bible, but not English, and even today. And we wanted to kind of get into that. Sorry, I don't want to like take up the whole stage here. But yeah, no, that word in particular, the breakdown is man and bed. But we have a list here, and I can put the link in the thing. I'll drop it in the chat, as a matter of fact, of words that Paul could have used if he wanted to just condemn homosexuality specifically. So I'll drop that in the chat for everybody. Boom, that one. But he didn't. He coined a term.
Mm-hmm.
And he coined a term that when paired with malakoi, which refers to, so like what it's translated as now is soft or effeminate, but it specifically refers to male child sex slaves or prostitutes. Because there was nothing wrong with female child sex slaves and prostitutes in biblical times, but there was an issue when it was young boys doing it.
It's almost a running theme right there. Again, as long as it's not the abuse of the male.
Yeah. And so that there. So I'm putting them. I'm gonna edit the. I meant to do this earlier. I'm gonna edit the description and put a couple things in here. This is very dry, but it's kind of scholarly type situation of arsenicoitai. Sorry. Again, I feel awkward like taking the stage on this one, but
I'm trying to pull up the scriptures in Romans, and I'm typing in the scripture. I'm just getting a bunch of commentaries on it, like Romans so and so says this. It actually means this. Like, why can't I find just the scripture? Like, do I really need to pull out a Bible?
Romans 1:26.
I could grab my Bible. That's a good idea. It's hiding.
Sorry, we're talking about. I want to say it's Romans 1:26. Hold on, Romans.
Yeah, it is.
1:26. So that is the only other mention of homosexuality in the New Testament. However, it doesn't use the word homosexuality. It is an orgy that happens because of an act of God, and we can get into that. You said somebody said it in the comments.
Let me pull it up.
So it's in Romans chapter 1.
Yeah, verse 26.
And if you read from the beginning, you don't just take that one fucking line out of context. You know, it says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of people who suppress the truth and unrighteousness." So this is a group of idolaters who knew God, who had heard of him and didn't believe in him.
I was reading an interesting commentary actually on Romans 1:26 specifically, because it's a verse that people like to throw out a lot, especially on my page, probably more so than the First Timothy verse. And what I was reading in the commentary on this is, like you were saying, it's an orgy, but more in particularly, it was the obsession with sex that was an issue. So for the unnatural to be thrown in there is actually in context speaking about somebody being overran with passion so that it becomes an obsession and that's their only thought. Think of like sex addiction. So for their natural sexual attractions to happen, it would be like, you know, have it in a healthy way. But for unnatural being all you think about day and night, chasing it, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what they regarded to as the pagans doing, is just having sex willy-nilly with everyone without a care in the world and no relationship. And it's also specifically not even talking about male-on-male sex. With each other refers to the other people in the crime. It just says men turning away from and then having sex with each other is actually regarding the women in that verse, not the men that turned away from it to have unnatural relations. I thought that was an interesting outlook.
Yeah. And that's how it's described too. It's described as God taking away the Holy Spirit from this group of people, and not only them becoming lust crazed, but also filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, and evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, yada, yada, so on and so forth. So it's, God took away the Holy Spirit from them, and then they started acting in a way that is outrageous. They were sex crazed, lust crazed, murderous, villainous, however. Yeah. And so this does not describe a healthy, loving relationship between two adults. Exactly. It describes chaos.
I like to describe it as God is a conversion therapy counselor who called it quits. He's like, that's it. I'm done. I've tried everything. I tried everything. I'm out.
And that is really, it's honestly how it reads. And that kind of ties back to the free will debate. So if God did this to them, do we have free will? Because to me, it's no different from in Exodus, when God intentionally hardens the heart of the Pharaoh so that he will not let the Israelites go, so that he can do the plagues, which is sort of God dunking on the Egyptian gods. Each plague is in contestation of an Egyptian god and what they're supposed to be, what their domain is.
Go ahead.
Huh?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Natalie has a question for Matt in the comments.
Oh, hi, Natalie. Matt, how often do you block or dismiss comments made on your lives, on your videos? So I don't go live very often. I try to do like a Sunday live because church. But I've chosen to be here with you tonight.
Tracks.
But I don't. I usually have moderators, and Mama Bear is in the chat somewhere. She's one of my moderators. But in terms of like my videos, I don't usually actually block comments. I kind of like leaving them up there to a algorithm boost discussion. The only ones I do remove is death threats and any kind of threats of violence or somebody attacking somebody else in the comments.
Or
not
slurs.
in an intellectual, but a direct way.
I remove slurs and death threats. And then I get
Slurs,
people that are like, you blocked my content. You're censoring me. I was like,
absolutely.
You
100% I will.
Slur, motherfucker. Like,
yeah. No, I don't see it a lot, but when it does happen, I make sure to remove them. There's probably it doesn't happen as often as people would think. Probably it's more my DMs that get the death threats, and those are also just blockable. I don't waste my time on any of that. Somebody had a threat that I live near 7-Eleven once, and I thought that was pretty funny. They just said, "We know you live next to 7-Eleven," and I was like, "That's 90% of America." Like, okay, which 7-Eleven, bro?
Wow. That's for real.
I've had that before. People are like, "I'm going to come find you and kick your ass." I'm like, okay, sell tickets. It'll be fun.
I hate to say it, but this relates to kind of when I was coming out to my school had a meeting about my sexuality because that's normal.
Oh, really?
And so the school board sat us down and were like, "You are not allowed to be gay." And I was like, okay, I don't think it works like that. And they're like, what we mean to say is you cannot be gay at school. And I was like, I don't think it works like that. And they're like, okay, well, you're not allowed to have a relationship with somebody, show any kind of gay affection. You have to keep it to yourself and don't talk about it, is what we're trying to say. It's because it's for your safety. Somebody was killed 5 years ago in the town I was at. And they said someone was killed 5 years ago for being gay, and we need to do it to protect you. And that pushed me to be gayer. Yeah, it's because I honestly, I looked at it like, if someone is going to go out of their way to kill me, then maybe it'll make people wake up and realize that there's something wrong with the world. I'm not going to change. I would much rather die a martyr and die for my sexuality and become the next Matthew Shepard. Ignore the irony in my name, but
Shepard.
Well, I wasn't even thinking about Shepard. I was thinking about my name being Matt, but
that's really
where
funny.
my brain went.
I thought you were giving us your last name there for a second. I was like, is it really? That's
no, Matthew Shepard, who was killed for being gay.
I know who Matthew Shepard. They left him dead on the side of the road.
Yes, they did.
Fucked up. I had a similar type of situation. It wasn't me in particular, but it happened at my school where a friend of mine got cornered in the locker room by 7 people, and he put 2 of them in the hospital, but they kicked his ass.
I bet. 7's a lot.
It was worse than I'm going to say on the podcast, but they messed him up. And then for like a week straight in solidarity, a bunch of people around the school were wearing like rainbow stuff. And they were going around and they were rounding up people who had any kind of, and there was one vice principal in particular who was a homophobe and a horrible person, was like suspending and even expelling people for like minor offenses because they had on rainbow stuff. A friend of mine was expelled, and the reason she was expelled was she had a spaghetti strap tank top on, but she had a shirt on over it. And it was just that she was wearing one of the rainbow pins that we had.
The dreaded spaghetti strap, yeah. I remember that.
How dare you show off your shoulders?
I could not focus on a single lesson in school because of those damn spaghetti straps.
Can't cause us men to stumble who have no control over our sexual desires, apparently.
That shit pisses me off.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the New Testament and arsenokoitai. Sorry, just to kind of get us back on track a little bit.
Yes.
Did we talk about how there are other words that Paul could have used?
We were getting there, I think.
If he wanted to specifically condemn homosexuality, there are a number of Greek and Latin words that he could have used. And just to hit a couple of them, aeronomanes, mad after men or boy crazy. Aristais was defining of the older men in pedirical relationships who like took these young boys as sex slaves. Even so, like effeminate was malakoi, but euryprokatai, I can't pronounce any Greek words. I'm sorry. Men who dress as women, vulgar reference to anal penetration. So the words arsenokoitai and malakoi in the King James Version of the Bible become sodomite and buggerer, which sodomite has been taken to mean homosexuality, but honestly refers to rapists,
Yeah.
and buggerer refers to anyone who participates in anal sex, male or female. So even that, like prior to 1946, even with sodomite and buggerer, the Bible never used the word homosexual or gay or any version of the word homosexual or gay. And then, arsenokoitai, and I'm going to post that later. It wouldn't let me do it now, but I'll put it in the description after the stream is over. There's all sorts of dissertations. If you just Google the word, it pops up on, several different dissertations, theses of people trying to kind of break it down and put it in historical context. And that sense of man bedding man, which it's man, males bedding. Bedding at the time didn't just mean having sex with.
Hey, Pasta Mike.
Is Pasta Mike in the chat?
Yeah.
Bless his noodly appendages. What is it? How do you say the flying spaghetti monster thing?
I think that was it.
Something like that, yeah. I think I got it right.
Or his noodly appendages be upon you. But no, bedding with, like as one beds with a woman, that referred to sort of exploitation or the owning of another person carnally. And that's more so what was forbidden, especially in the context. So if you look at Timothy 1:10 in the Greek, the words are, malakoi, so child sex slaves or prostitutes because they could sell themselves into slavery. The men who buy them, and then men stealers, the ones who procure them. Which ultimately, like one way or the other, that I don't care because it still says that the child is going to hell. That's not okay. But it doesn't just simply refer to adult male homosexuality.
Yeah.
And it's interesting in the context of 1 Timothy. I don't know I'm just kind of glancing at it now, but I feel like you always have to watch the words that are happening directly before and after. Obviously, it's the Bible. It's how you're supposed to do it. But the fact that they put homosexuality next to, like you said, slave traders is probably the biggest indicator that they're not talking about homosexuality as it is today. Much in the same way that they're talking about the pagans in the last verse that we were just speaking about. So always pay attention to those words around the words. People like to just pick up on homo.
Men stealers. Well, now in the NSAB it says slave traders, but I want to say it was men stealers in the KJV, and I think the NIV calls it something completely different. No, it still says slave traders. I don't know. There was one that I read and it didn't say slave traders. It said like I think it said adulterers or something.
Did you check the Young's literal?
Oh, geez. Isn't that the one that is basically fucking unreadable?
Yeah, but it's the most accurate. So if you want to know what word is actually being used there, that's the one you got to look at.
Whoremongers, sodomites, men stealers, liars, perjured persons, and so on and so forth. So even that context of sodomites. So Sodom and Gomorrah, and we were talking about that earlier. I think you just put out a TikTok about it earlier today.
Yes, a repost.
Where that, first of all, yes, they were homosexuals, or probably more accurately bisexuals, because they would have raped women too. But it's not about that. And if you read that passage and that's what you take away from it, like you have problems because it's strangers in their land that they're being inhospitable towards, which that's putting it lightly. But
they're angels.
They're rapists.
And they're angels.
Trying to rape angels.
Yeah.
And we get into the fact that, first of all, that's parable, because in Judges, it tells the exact same story, just referencing Gibeah.
It's way worse, though.
Yeah, so they which that's still parable, where they, I think it's the Levite and his concubine go to this man's house, and they toss out the concubine, and they rape the concubine, which they then dismember her and send one piece to each of the 12 tribes.
Oh, that's the choppy story where they just
he finds her dead on his doorstep the next morning, and he's like, and he cuts her up
was
in
like,
12
get
pieces.
up, we gotta go, and she's just fucking dead.
Yeah, I'm like, why? That's
if no one has read that story, they should really look into it. It's like it's a modern one. For me, it's modern as Jesus. It's very modern. It's a very ancient horror story, and the fact that people just kind of glaze right over that in Sunday school with the chopping by piece, nailing body parts is pretty great.
It's It's because it's a retelling. It's the same fucking story, except
Sure.
instead of two angels, it's a man and his concubine.
Mhm.
And I mean, you see that a
but
lot
yeah,
too with Bathsheba. It's kind of this Bathsheba. I can't talk. You know,
Bathsheba.
So if you have that kind of
Similar
sense
story.
that sodomite is coined meaning rapists or even inhospitable persons, which again, putting it lightly, So whoremongers, though, isn't a whoremonger a person who sells whores?
Yeah, that would be a
What is
pimp.
whoremonger?
Yeah. Pimps in the Bible.
Person who has dealings with prostitutes, especially a sexually promiscuous man. Okay, well, but that's the context then. Still, is prostitutes, sodomites, so rapists, or
Right.
in this case, just the concept of exploitation over another person, and then men stealers. So it's the child sex slaves, the men who buy them, and then the men who steal them or kidnap them.
So
And who was Paul writing to in Timothy?
to Timothy.
Oh, fuck if I know.
Was it to Timothy?
It was directly to Timothy, yeah.
Well, Timothy sounds like he was a sex trader.
Which is why he says also in the about women, I don't allow women to speak in church, because he's giving guidance to Timothy on how to run his church. He's like, I don't do this in my church, so
Right.
I recommend you do that too. So that's pretty much the theme through 1st and 2nd Timothy.
And that's another important part is who is he writing to? People always forget that and take it to mean the entire world. But this is very specifically telling Timothy what to do.
Mm-hmm. And
sure.
I maintain that, as you alluded to earlier, Mason, Paul being a Pharisee and an Old Testament scholar, he knew exactly what he was talking about. And I think he was referring to homosexuality in addition to everything else. So to say he's against the orgies and the sex slaves and all that and the pimping and whoremongering, but he's okay with this one particular, like a loving same-sex relation. I disagree with that. I think that's lumped in there as well, because going back to Leviticus, the word zahar has no connotation of age or even species. It just means male. So it's no male on male anything, and it was referring to sexual sin as a whole, because that made you impure and made you unable to enter into the presence of God. So if you had the sin of gay sex on you, if you smelled of gay sex when you went into the Holy of Holies, God will smell you. So.
So we can get into that, and that insofar as if he was taking it to refer to Leviticus, if he coined that term to use that sort of Levitical language, there's a couple things.
Let me interject.
I do honestly think, to an extent, it is a valid perspective to have, and that's why I did send you that link earlier, and it does come up in that link. But again, even the context of Leviticus has sort of not only an exploitation facet to it, because you're right, Zahar doesn't refer to any specific age, but the word for woman does. It refers to adult women. So you have this concept of, okay, well, you shall not lie with men ages 0 to 100 in the way that you would lie with a woman of age whom you own. In context in Leviticus 18, I think it's 6 through 18, it refers to all of the forbidden relationships to the Israelites, and it's all incest. And in the earlier manuscripts, it was specifically forbidding primarily incestuous relationships with different female family members. And then at the end, there's that short little, also don't do it with men, any men. You can, you can have sex with female family members who don't fit this list, but don't have sex with your male family members. And then over time that adjusted, and there's specifically, so I'll pull it up real quick.
While you pull that up, I just want to add on to that in the Levitical law, as you mentioned too, Dad, about it being about, not being clean and being unclean. There's a lot of things that make you unclean that aren't necessarily ultimate sins or something that's, it just means you're not allowed to enter the temple until you've gone through the entire cleansing process to go back into the temple.
And that reminds me, a raven fed Elijah when he was starving. and a raven is an unclean animal. So
Right.
God used an unclean animal to feed his servant. So you could be onto something there.
Yeah, I mean, there's even now today in like Orthodox Judaism, there's a lot of different things. I mean, like, if you're a woman, you want to be able to enter the temple until after you go through the whole post-menstrual cleansing process. But they don't think every woman's committed to hell because they're unclean. It just means you got to be kosher.
And that's the thing, though, is that Christians don't follow any of those purity rituals anymore.
Right.
They don't follow any of them.
Right.
There's 312-ish Levitical and Deuteronomical laws, some of which are repeated, but just overall unique laws. And Christians follow exactly 0 of them. And
only the ones they want to.
the ones that they
Only
want
the
to,
gay
but they
ones.
don't even
They like to
follow
pick and
those.
choose.
So there's that big argument that's like, okay, well, Leviticus and Deuteronomy and even certain laws or commandments in Exodus don't apply to Christians because, and they want to talk about this difference between ceremonial and moral law. That doesn't exist anywhere in the scriptures. There's no basis to say, well, we can wear whatever fabrics we want because that's ceremonial law, but homosexuality is moral law. Especially because, as you're talking about, this is purity in reference to sexual purity for the church to go into the church. There are certain things that, so like on women who menstruate, they don't give a shit about that anymore. I have never heard once a Christian say anything about not having sex on a woman's period. Whether or not people do, because it's gross, losers. Anyway, but no. So the earlier manuscripts of Leviticus, there's 2 in particular, which is you shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, that is the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother, you're not to uncover her nakedness. That is an add-on. That's a clarification, if you will, several hundreds of years after the fact, where originally it just said the nakedness of your father, as Ham did with Noah, supposedly, curse of Ham. He uncovered the nakedness of his, well, it wasn't Ham, it was Ham's father, right? Hold on. Fuck. I got myself confused just there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It is Ham. It's Ham, but the curse of Ham is on one of Ham's children, not Ham himself. Am I getting that right? It doesn't matter. Anyway, that, it didn't say the nakedness of your mother. It was your father. And then it was your brother's wife. It is your brother's nakedness. It was brother. So it was, don't have sex with your grandma, your female, sisters, your mother, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 all these different female familial relationships, but then specifically your father or your brother. And then they threw in now, you shall not sleep with a male as one sleeps with a female. It is an abomination. That originally just referenced all other male incestuous relationships. And people want to hammer on the word abomination. Stop. You look foolish. The Bible calls shrimp an abomination. It doesn't mean now. Then.
Shrimp are like little sea roaches.
Spiders.
I don't know why
Yeah,
people eat them.
I feel the same way about lobster. It's like, imagine an alternate universe where people ate spiders every day and nobody thought it was weird, but you.
They do, depending on the country, but like I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
really okay.
So, but that's, and not only all of that, but as you're saying, like prior to the Babylonian exile, these Levitical, Deuteronomical laws, they didn't apply to all of the Israelites. They only applied to the priest caste.
Yeah.
And then during the Babylonian exile, they started to adopt all of them, just all the Israelites were doing all of them to bring them together as a people. They're like, we don't do these things, and that unifies us as a nation, as a people, that these other nations do. So whether or not they're considered immoral or ceremonial or however, it's something that they did to just unify them as a people. And now Christians don't follow it, but they want to cherry pick it, and it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Kind of what you were saying too reminded me of just, again, not an expert, but I know some stuff about things. Mormonism, right? So the word of wisdom isn't necessarily anything that's a proclamation from God. I mean, the prophet will say it is, but the entire usage of the word of wisdom is to unify the church and set them aside from other Christian sects, saying like, we don't drink coffee because it's more of a control tactic than anything else. And that's sort of the same exact thing that you were touching on in differentiating them from the pagans. The pagans do this, we do this. They do that, we do this.
That's
They're
actually
just making
really
that wall.
I hadn't made that connection, but you're absolutely right. The Doctrine and Covenants, the Word of Wisdom, that kind of stuff just separates them from other Christians, because it's like, even so you can consider that the same fucking thing. It's like caffeine's a drug and we don't do drugs, but these other Christians do. That makes us better than them. We're holier than thou. So here's the thing. You're right. You don't actually have to follow the words of wisdom to be a Mormon, but the Mormons have this honestly almost divine, or not divine, but like Dante's Inferno, Dante's Paradise, I should say, esque quality where they consider heaven tiered. Yeah. So if you do follow the words of wisdom and the Doctrine and Covenants, you get into VIP heaven.
You get your planet.
That's going to be fun. We're doing that next week with Poogie Bear. I don't know if he's in the chat or not. You hear Poogie Bear? Extra Mormon content. So I never considered myself Christian or even Mormon, but from age like 11 to 16, I was made to go to Mormon church every Sunday, or just about every Sunday. And that, that gave me a new appreciation for the hypocrisy of Mormonism and Christianity in particular, because my parents bought soda, drank coffee, but whenever they had the elders over, whenever they had people from the church over, they're like, put that away. Don't. Oh, no. You offered him a Coke. Are you high? It's like, Ma, you drink Coke. You drink coffee. Quit pretending. You're lying. I'm pretty sure the Bible says not to do that.
Performance religion is my favorite kind.
I grew up charismatic evangelical. You want to talk about performance Christianity, or performance religion? We could talk about that. I can tell you all about that.
I feel like that's a lot of what I'm seeing, just like in this new age of like TikTok and being surrounded by children. And I don't know if it's because I don't hang out with teenagers in regular life, and I'm just now finally finding them on the internet because they come to my videos and start talking and leaving comments. And it feels like in this religious bubble I've built, there's more and more Christians, and there's more and more Christians who aren't necessarily biblically literate that will throw out random things. And it seems like it's more for the performance aspect of commenting just to comment and jump on the bandwagon. And I don't remember where I was going with this train of thought, but we were talking about performance religion. And I feel like that's what a lot of it is. And it's breeding this weird kind of perpetual cycle of just being more and more upset about things just to be upset about it, because they want to show that they're a good Christian and they want to be vocal about how good of a Christian they are, that they're upset about something. And it's interesting. And
I often wonder what I would have done if I had TikTok when I was an uber Christian teenager, because I see all these other uber Christian teenagers, and I'm like, okay, I was like, would I be more like TJ, or would I be more like Bram, or would I be more like that guy who looks really close and speaks passionately, like God loves you so much, guys.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm talking about. Exactly.
I can't think of his name. David, yes.
I called him Squidward. I was like, dry your tears, Squidward. Why are you always crying?
Yeah.
He's always crying. And
all these characters, and I'm like, what would I be?
That's I think he does it on purpose. That's an emotional manipulation tactic.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Ties back to like narcissism and hypocrisy in the church. I want to touch on something somebody just said. Jesse Alexander says, speaking in tongues is very performative. It is now, but biblically speaking, no, actually, because speaking in tongues now, they, all right, you can't make this shit up. Yes, the fuck you can. You just did. Historically, biblically, it was supposed to be as a miracle where you spoke a language that you didn't understand to get a point across to a foreigner. It wasn't babbling incoherently. It was actually speaking to a person who could understand you, even though you didn't share a common language.
So let me get here. This is more my wheelhouse.
Oh yeah, get in there.
Yeah,
hit me up.
The angelic language, which was mentioned in Acts during the early church, the day of Pentecost, when they all spoke in tongues and they had what they described as tongues of flame over their head, and everyone who was around the building that they were in understood what they were saying in their native language, even though they didn't have that language or didn't know that language. And they that's called isolalia. Glossolalia is the gibberish that you hear. It's the angelic language, and it is kind of biblical that there is an angelic language that only between you and God. But what's funny is in my particular denomination, which is Assemblies of God, speaking in tongues was the initial evidence of the infilling of the Holy Spirit. So, but what they did is they would teach you that glossolalia, the gibberish one, is the one you have to have, but they talk about Acts in the upper room to back that up. And very quickly I was like, wait, that's not the same tongues. That's isolalia. So if you're going to say that this is the initial physical evidence of the infilling of the Holy Spirit, you have to bring somebody near me that speaks Spanish or French and then have me pray in front of them. And then they'll tell me if they understood what I said or not. So it's really weird how my denomination did that. There's another a language. There's like 3 or 4 different types of tongues, and I think the other one is I can't remember now.
I know our topic is supposed to be homosexuality in the Bible, but I really I had a almost an epiphany about the fucking Tower of Babel and what that means. That I kind of want to just briefly get into, and we can get back to the topic at hand. Sorry, but if you look at it and how it is described, so all the humans cooperate, work together to build this tower to the heavens, and then when God strikes it down, he says that he is going to divide people into nations and give them separate languages from the language of the birds in order to divide them so that they can't cooperate. And so if you want to take that literally, if you want to see that all humans originally came like one nation, were cooperative, and then God split us up, every single conflict that exists now between humanity is God's fault. Every war that is fought, if you take the Bible literally, which you shouldn't, but if you do, you have to look at the Tower of Babel and see that as God dividing humanity and giving us strife. That I was reading that because I'm going back through the whole fucking Bible, and I'm comparing everything to the fucking Hebrew and the Greek just to kind of point out more situations that are pantheist or polytheist, I should say, in general. And I hit on that, and I read it like fucking 6 or 7 times, and I was like, what an asshole.
And I can't remember. I think maybe, I'm not sure if it's Richard Carrier or Robert Price. I think it's Robert Price. He makes a connection between the upper room in Acts and the Tower of Babel. He thinks it's a retelling of the same story, just like in the Sodom and Gomorrah, but it's a little bit flipped. But it has the same pattern. You're in an upper room like a tower. But in the Old Testament, everyone's divided by the language, and in the New Testament, everyone is united kind of by a singular language.
Hyperhumanity did a whole series on that, actually, if anyone follows Hyper.
I love Hyperhumanity, but he cracks me up. I take him seriously, don't get me wrong, and I like the information that he puts out, but his tonal inflection.
Yeah, the delivery.
If you watch his live, if you ever catch him live, go watch. He talks the exact same way.
I bet.
He's like, I went to McDonald's the other day and I ordered a Big Mac, but it didn't have pickles on it. So I was like that's.
I love your impression.
It sounds like I'm making fun of him. I'm not. I love you, Hyperhumanity. But it's. I don't want to say amusing because that's like patronizing, but it's honest. It doesn't feel disingenuous at all. Yeah. And the fact that he talks like that even on his lives, like you said, it fills my fucking heart with glee. Let's say it that way because that sounds nicer. His energy is indeed intense. Atheist Mom Bear in the chat. Also in the chat we have a thing going on. Pimp Jesus has taken the PJ nickname away from.
Oh, there we go.
Homophobe bigot Pastor John. I don't like him anymore.
I say
we do have a word of the night, and a matter of fact, I just said it. So everybody drink. I don't have the thing on hand right now. What's the
word? Oh, we don't know. Is that
we don't know the word till the end?
He knows it. We have to guess. Can you shrink me, Mason?
I can't.
You don't like being so big. You're so pretty.
I want to share the screen. We're all pretty.
Okay.
Whoop. We'll do that. I'll be on the bottom. Anyway,
power bottom.
I made a joke earlier about being spit roasted, and now that just it brought it back up to my head. Yeah. Anyway, no. So it's funny though, because you're talking about Acts where it's united. I'm gonna have to read that because I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about, but it kind of cracks me up. So the reason that it made me think of this, of Yahweh being kind of a dick for separating the people and separating the language and giving us strife, is that in my favorite book, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they sort of blame the Babel fish. They call it the Babel fish, and it's a fucking fish that you put in your ear that makes you capable of understanding all language. And he said, due to connecting, the language barrier between all species, the Babel fish is guilty of causing more war and strife in the galaxy than anything else. And it's used as a proof of God. So that's fucking Douglas Adams and his dry British humor. I love it. So he's like, God says, without faith, I am nothing. And that's why I don't prove that I exist. So man pops up and he says, aha, but the Babelfish is a dead giveaway. Nothing so extraordinarily useful could have evolved by pure chance. It proves that you exist. Therefore, by your own logic, you don't. Oh, says God, I hadn't thought of that, and promptly vanishes in a poof of logic. Well, that was easy, says man, who then promptly goes off to prove that white is black and is killed in the next zebra crossing. Fuck, I love Douglas Adams. Yeah, I just did that whole little rant off the dome because I've read that.
I was going to say, I'm really impressed that you just had that on the tip of your brain.
You make me want to read it now. I haven't read it.
Oh my God, it's so great. I have a copy that's battered and torn the fuck up, and I won't get rid of it because I have a really pretty leather-bound copy that I've never touched because I don't want to ruin it. And I have this beat the fuck ass like covers off fucking torn up version of it that I have. I've read it probably.
If that's your favorite book, then I might have to check that out. I don't read
a radio broadcast. You can watch that instead if you want. How have I read it? Sorry, Natalie says, how have I read it 20 times, or how do I remember it? Because I've read it 20 times. That's why I fucking remember it. Anyway, so yeah, that was probably intentional on the part of Douglas Adams. I think if he were with us today, he'd say that that was his kind of thought process for Babel, is that God gave humanity strife when he took away the language of the birds. Guide to the Galaxy is Crimson Barrel's Bible. You know what? Fuck yeah. They bring up God a couple of times in the Hitchhiker's Guide, and it cracks me up. So God's last message to life is emblazoned in like 400-foot high flaming letters. And Marvin, the android in the story, they take him to go see it. And he's several billion years old. He's like twice as old as the universe at this point because of all his time traveling exploits. And it's the last thing that he sees before he dies. And it's, we're sorry for the inconvenience. That's God's last message to life.
Wow.
I fucking love that story. Sorry, we're on Guide to the Galaxy. We're supposed to be talking about, well, it is nerds and heresy, so fuck you. I do what I want.
It is nerdy.
Exactly. But this could be a good transition into the next segment where we talk about nerdy things, unless we want to talk more about the homosexuality issue.
Well, we've only been going for an hour. How long do you want to go tonight?
We could do another hour.
Another hour in you, because we haven't talked about Ruth and Naomi or David and Jonathan yet.
Yeah, I could go another hour.
Okay. Well, that's I brought it up to I think to you when we were talking earlier. Sorry, I probably pointed the wrong way versus. I think it's this way. Anyway, there's a specific verse from the Bible that's used a lot in heterosexual marriage.
Weddings.
Well, weddings, but I was going to say a different word in it. Ceremonies is what I was going to say. Sorry. And it's, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go. And where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. And they use it in heterosexual marriage ceremonies, but Ruth says it to Naomi after their husbands die, and they stay together. And it's like Ruth marries Boaz,
Yeah.
who is a relative. I don't know if it was a relative of her husband or of hers. I don't remember.
Yeah, and he's like 80 years old, and
But
she's like,
that wedding, so biblical weddings, the way that it's defined, especially in Genesis and then later, two souls becoming one, flesh becomes one, that is more indicative of like actual love. But then historically speaking, marriages, even at the time, were business transactions. It was people buying and selling women.
Right.
And so the relationship to Boaz is essentially more of a business transaction. It was,
and that was Naomi's idea too, right?
Yeah.
Naomi was the one who said you need
shall
to
marry
wed Boaz,
Boaz,
produce an heir, because they were traveling without a man, and they
Which is
just
bad.
recently moved to a new city, so they were trying to hitch down just for political reasons.
But so that being, the sort of biblical business transaction kind of wedding, but then what Ruth and Naomi have, whether or not it's sanctioned or official, is more so biblical marriage in the sense of two souls becoming one.
Right.
So yeah, that's those bitches gay. Good for them.
And then they get pregnant. Specifically, Ruth gets pregnant with Boaz, and then Naomi raises the child.
Yeah, so Ruth,
because it's the first modern
give
family.
Naomi a child, because Ruth already had kids and Naomi didn't. Am I remembering that right?
yeah, I think that's right. One funny kind of little sidetrack about Ruth and Boaz. I made a TikTok about this a while ago, asking if this is accurate or not. But I'd heard that when Boaz was laying down, and it says that Ruth covered his feet. That's like an ancient Hebrew colloquialism or slang for something sexual. And it's similar to when David sneaks up on King Saul while he was in the cave burying his feet. And David cut a piece of his cloak off so that later he said, when you were in the cave covering your feet, I could have killed you, but I didn't. Because usually tell that he was peeing, but it seems more accurate that he was probably jerking off. And Boaz probably Ruth is probably jerking off Boaz, not covering his feet with a cloth so he stays warm, like they teach in Sunday school. She was probably giving him head or jerking him off. And yeah.
Well, that makes sense if you consider, especially like in the NSAB in the literal translation, uncovering one's nakedness. So if he was covered or being uncovered, that's
exactly right.
The old handy.
The Tilda Swinton.
What I affectionately refer to as a mouth hug. Sorry. Somebody said you were echoing. Does anybody hear an echo? Because it's probably my fault.
I think it was coming from your computer, actually, Mason.
Yeah, well, I don't have headphones in.
I know.
I'm going to do that next time. But I keep forgetting that this thing here isn't actually headphone jack, although it says that it is. So I got this fancy new mic, and we're streaming D&D, and I've fucked up every single Twitch stream so far. But our session last week went just fine. But I wasn't using my fancy mic. I was using a headset. And our D&D stream, the first one was lost to the void that is Twitch. The second one, I wasn't wearing a headset, and I didn't have my fancy mic set up, so the echo was fucking terrible, unwatchable. The third session, the audio's fine, but the video was paused for like an hour, and then when I brought it back up, I did it on purpose, but I didn't think it would do it on the stream. It shrunk to like half size, so nobody could see the fucking map. Somebody said he's fixed now, so that's cool. Mouth hug. Yeah, mouth hug. You never heard that? That's I think that's a Ron White joke.
Yes, he was jerking off in the cave. The king was jerking off in the cave.
But so that's
David snuck up behind him while he was.
I want to know why the cave. Is that like a good place to do it? Have I been doing this wrong?
Yeah,
should I find a cave?
It's a privacy.
Have you never jerked off in a cave? It's otherworldly. It's great.
So when I was in Macedonia last year, I went to Macedonia with the military for a mission regarding NATO, a bunch of secret squirrel shit. We got like a culture day, and I got to go see a castle. And I went into a castle, and there was a condom like in one of the areas of the castle. It was like ruins of a castle. And I was like, I want to fuck in ruins of a castle. Are you serious?
Great. That sounds like a top bucket list item.
Someone fucking had the time of their life right here.
Yeah.
And I'm really jealous.
Yeah.
What the
Well,
fuck?
let's do it again. Go on over to Macedonia.
Got to plan out the like between tours.
Yeah.
There's castles in America. You can make it happen.
Yeah.
Do we have any castles? America's only so
people
here's
get
the
like
thing that-
married, and then they're built for like aesthetic.
Yeah, there's
reasons.
not
They're
like
not
historic castles.
Yeah.
That's so I lived in Italy for 9 months and I got to travel around a little bit, and it's great because in Europe you get to experience age, because you don't really get that in a lot of places in America, where it's like I went to Venice and I saw I went to the St. Marcus's Square, I went to some of the cathedrals that are there, and it's like you're like, this shit has been here for damn near 1,000 years, however long.
Crazy.
Whereas in America, and this is a statistic I bring up a lot because it's funny, the current Queen of England has been Queen of England for 1/4 the amount of time that America has existed.
Accurate.
It's a trip.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So we
Yes,
talk
it's-
about certain things that comes up a lot in like discussions on race and slavery and whatnot. That America's not that old.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. Like going to Macedonia again and Iraq even, but not. We didn't really visit any historic places in Iraq. But in Macedonia, we did. You're like, this is like a 1,000-year-old castle, and there's statues of Alexander the Great that are 1,000+ years old.
That's another
all these things. I'm like, this is nuts. Yeah,
they like to write out
of history, like you said. That you
Speaking
don't.
of
like to write out that
heroes.
Alexander the Great was bisexual or probably
Yeah.
even just gay. His Hephaestion was his best friend for life. And when Hephaestion dies, Alexander goes on a fucking rampage, kills the temple priests that were charged with keeping him alive, burns down the temple, goes to like the head of the church to pronounce Hephaestion as a divine hero, which he wanted to make him a god, and they were like, no, he's a divine hero. He's not. He's not a demigod. And has like a 6-month kind of party, festival, parade, and a parade rather in honor of Hephaestion, and then drops dead.
Wow.
Yeah,
History's gay.
History's
They're
pretty
like,
great.
they
And,
were
like,
really good friends. They were
Who was
roommates.
in the movie Alexander? Was that Orlando Bloom? I think they
Did
didn't
he
really
play
like.
Hephaestion in a movie?
No, he played Alexander, but they didn't really touch on any of the bi stuff, and it was very upsetting. There was
They did the
a.
same thing with
sex scene where he sees
Troy
ass,
and Achilles.
Was I
and-
thinking of Troy? I might have been thinking of Troy.
Well, Troy is
Troy
Brad
is what
Pitt.
the movie's called, right?
Oh, is
But that's
Orlando
about
Bloom is in that
Alexander.
movie, isn't he? But he's
Yeah.
not Alexander the Great. He's like Perseus or Theseus or one of the Yesses.
Yeah, he
But
was.
that's the same deal though, because that's Achilles, and I want to say it's Perseus. Who the fuck is it?
He's
Somebody
the
help
one
me
who
out in the
killed-
comments.
He's the one who kills him. Who kills Troy?
Yeah, but
He
the
shoots
point
arrows
is that they're
at the
gay, and they don't touch on that in the movie.
They don't touch on it at
all.
all. So I see like a
they're
huge
so-
opening.
Of course not. They wouldn't. They wouldn't get as much box
Hollywood
office sales.
used to do this thing where they would treat
Paris.
black people
Paris,
as
that's
magic.
right.
So like the magic janitor in certain movies, that kind of trope. And for the longest time, they kind of treated gay people as the butt of certain jokes.
Yeah.
But then now gay people are the magic people in Hollywood. You have like the William Wallace kind of in Scott Pilgrim, where they are capable of certain things, and they always have good advice and these kinds of situations where it's like they're trying to seem like they're not homophobic, but instead of just making LGBT people like average people in these universes, they're the special people. And
They
it's
turned
like,
them into
that
the
you're
literal
going-
fairy godmothers.
Yeah. Colin Farrell played Alexander. And what?
Thank you, Colin
hot.
Farrell. Ugh, that's what I was trying to get to.
I
Sorry.
have not seen
Yes.
that. I don't think I've even
I
heard.
don't know what I'm
of
talking. Yeah, I don't think I've heard of that.
gonna have to look
Was
this up.
Alexander in a movie? I'm gonna have to look that up.
It's something that
Um,
totally escaped my radar.
Speaking of transgender people,
Yeah.
to kind of tie us back to the thing, so I do want to touch on David and Jonathan, but specifically as far as transgender people go, this is a fun topic, and I think you might have talked about it before, Matt, and I've brought it up once or twice, where the divine logos, Hagia Sophia, the Bible personifies wisdom as a goddess, as a person, in Proverbs 3, 4, and 8, and then certain other places. And the way that the goddess wisdom, Sophia, is described parallels descriptions of Jesus. And even in Corinthians, Paul compares Jesus to wisdom specifically. And so that's supposedly supposed to be Jesus's divine form before coming to earth. And early Christians believed this. This isn't some kind of heretical type situation. This is one of these things in Christianity that's been forgotten over time.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you can even just Google divine logos, and it'll pull up the Logos Wikipedia page and describes how and why and when and provides sources.
There's a couple
Wikipedia
of
is a good
different
resource.
school of
It's not a
thoughts
good
on that
source. You
too.
can't use it for college, but it's a good resource to find sources
You can
to
find
use
sources.
for college. What's up? Sorry.
No, you're fine. Sophia, just like there's a couple of different schools of thoughts within the early Christians as well, in terms of where her place was. Some of them, obviously refer to Sophia as being the other half of Jesus, being the yin to the yang to balance them out. So if Jesus was the male son of God, he was also Sophia, wisdom, to represent all of humanity for the male and the female. As well as there's people who hold Sophia as the fourth branch of Christianity. The Russian Orthodox Church has the Trinity, and then they had the fourth add-on of Sophia because they regarded her as important as the Holy Spirit. Because without wisdom, what else do you have in life?
Well, that's a thing, and so that's interesting, and that kind of ties into how the Trinity isn't really true.
Yeah.
For a couple different reasons. Like, even in the context of the Bible, it's like, yeah, you're baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. But the reason for that is because you wouldn't be baptized in Satan.
Yeah.
Satan is the left hand of God. Satan's not, and I talk about this a lot on my TikTok, Satan's not Lucifer. Lucifer's only mentioned one time in the entire Bible in Isaiah 14:12, and that is poetic language that refers to the king of Babylon. Mm-hmm. And Lucifer is replaces in the Vulgate Hellel ben Sahar from the Hebrew Bible, who is a Canaanite deity. And then the story of the fall kind of parallels Attar. Attar and Hellel are sort of connected insofar as they're the light bringer, they're the god of the dawn. Attar in the Baal cycle was going to take the throne of Baal, which was given to him by El, over the earth. He was going to take the throne of Baal, but realized he wasn't worthy and stepped down. He didn't fall. He left the heavens and went to the underworld, where he battled Mot, the Canaanite deity of death, who is also in the Bible as death personified, and usurps him, takes his position, and becomes king of the underworld, which in the Canaanite mythology is a lake of fire. So that reference to Lucifer, who is a Roman god of the dawn, the planet Venus personified, actually refers to Hellel ben Sahar, who is a Canaanite deity, like other Canaanite deities that are mentioned in the Bible, Baal, Mot, I think even Yam, Asherah, and El. But Satan isn't Lucifer. Satan isn't Hellel ben Sahar. There is a Satan, the Satan, who is Samael, the archangel, who's just doing his job. He's not a fallen angel. He is one of the Elohim. He's well, not really, but anyway, he's doing his job. He's supposed to be the opposer, the accuser.
Right, yeah. He's working for God.
He works for God.
Servant.
His purpose is to challenge God. That's what he exists for. The man's just doing his job. And in
chasing after Job,
Jewish mysticisms, when he succeeds in tempting the Israelites, he cries. Like, he's a good boy. Stop hating on Samael. But anyway, sorry, I'm just kind of getting off topic here.
Your question, Mama Bear, in a minute.
That's my point, though, is that Satan, though, is another aspect of God. Satan is a spiritual force that is inverse to the Holy Spirit that tempts the Israelites to sin. And the personification of Satan would be Samael, not Lucifer, who Samael is Diablos. He's the devil, too. But again, doesn't rule.
That's where it gets interesting, I think, is because in Gnosticism, Samael is also the demiurge. So Socklus and Samael are the same, one and the same within Gnosticism. So I'm trying to see if like this
was Yahweh in Gnosticism. I really got to study Gnosticism more because
people propose that Yahweh is the demiurge, and that's why they say that Gnosticism says that the god you're worshiping is the evil one. But Socklus, Samael, because Samael means the blind god in Arabic. In Arabic.
So
Mama Bear asks, go ahead.
In Hebrew, I'll just say this one time. In Hebrew, Samael is the venom of El. So I don't know I'd have to look into that as far as it being blind, but he's supposed to be the venom of El.
Yes, no. So he's the venom in Hebrew. In Arabic, he's the blind god.
Okay,
That would be the differentiation.
that's the difference between Satan and Shaitan, I think. But anyway, sorry.
Jesus dropping some knowledge. I like it.
Yeah. Well, I did a video on it. If I didn't do a video on it, I don't have the knowledge.
What was, sorry, you said Mama Bear had a question?
Yeah, she asked if the Bible touches on non-binary persons or asexual. I would say you have the scriptures that condemn men dressing as women, women dressing as men. That might cast a not so positive light on that. Is also the scripture saying, I can't remember it now, but if you have mutilated genitals, you can't enter into the kingdom of heaven. And as far as asexual goes, I think that was the Bible's probably pro that, because Paul says if you can refrain from being married like I have, then you should do that.
Oh, Paul loves that.
But he's doing it. He's doing it more for
the same thing as far as so there's one verse in the Gospels that Jesus says that Christians will try to point to as a condemnation of homosexuality. He talks about biblical marriage, and he says, man and woman come together as one flesh. What God has put together, let not man tear asunder. That verse refers to divorce, but more specifically, immediately following that, one of the Pharisees says to him, if this is true, it's better to not be married. And Jesus says, yes. There are some men who cannot accept this truth, those who are born this way from their mother's womb, among others. And the word that's used is eunuch, but eunuchs didn't refer then to what it means now, just specifically as people with, castrated. It had a more, I guess, ceremonial meaning or deeper meaning insofar as like temple guards who were either celibate with women or homosexuals who never got married, biblically speaking. They never had any kind of wives or concubines. So that verse refers to homosexuality. People who are born that way.
Right. So this question by Brian isn't Eve transgender? Isn't that one of our topics?
Yeah, that is one of our topics. But as far as asexuals or non-binary individuals, I would say that applies to if you understand, like if you want to try to understand Genesis 1 as Elohim being the one God or even the Trinity, he makes man and woman in his image, their image, our image. So that would make God non-binary. God doesn't have a gender. Neither do the angels. The angels are genderless. So agender, possibly non-binary. But, so I would say that as far as divinely speaking, not humanity, but the Elohim, the angels,
especially if you hold to Lilith being created in tangent with Adam. Like Lilith didn't come from Adam; God created both of them at the same time, and they're both created in His image.
When I did my last video on Lilith, I said that creation myth, which that comes well after Jesus' death, like Lilith existed as a figure in Babylon and Sumeria, but tying her to Adam and the creation, that is Jewish folklore that exists. God, I want to say 7th century was the earliest retelling of that. AD, not. But that's one of the things that I almost kind of respect about Judaism as opposed to Christianity is that they continued telling stories.
And she's also mentioned in the Psalms, though.
She is mentioned in the Psalms, but it takes it as free tell.
Isn't the mention in Psalms though? I can't remember the word that used, but there's a specific part of Lilith in folklore that is essentially like the Jewish form of a succubus. But when you're speaking about like the Jewish form of the succubus, it's actually like a creature. It's a cryptid that exists. So like it names other creatures in that passage about like X, Y, and Z in the desert, and they mention all these other, I guess, known cryptids. So placing Lilith right there, she's like a night owl. Yeah.
We have not yet discussed David and Jonathan Grumpy. Sorry, that's your name on the thing. We're going to get to that, and I'm sorry, we just kind of got off on a tangent here.
Sorry, all men are technically transgender. It's why we have nipples. Thank you.
That's true. We're all female in the womb. God damn it.
Yeah.
We all started out as assholes.
Huh?
So we all started out as assholes.
We're all, that's why men have nipples. We're all female in the womb. But here's the thing, and I love it because transphobes want to talk about biology and chromosomes, but they don't understand biology and chromosomes. When they're like, if you have XX, you're a female. If you have XY, you're a male. There are conditions and disorders and intersex situations where people have XX and they're male, or XY and they're female, or multiple chromosomes, which isn't always any kind of learning disability or disability in general. A lot of people don't even know that they have these chromosomal mutations even. And it'd be one thing if it was like 1 in 1,000. It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20 people have chromosomes that do not conform to XX female, XY male. 1 in 20. That's
I want to get tested
several
so
million
bad.
fucking people. You want to get into this?
I just want to get tested. Like, I want to know. I want to know my chromosomes. Just 1 in 20 is so much more common than you would have it believe, because it doesn't present itself always. Like, it's not always going to be hermaphroditical or just. Oh, I mean, I think it's Jamie Lee Curtis. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but Jamie Lee Curtis has something going on chromosomally. I was watching that on a 2020 episode about a supermodel, because they say it generally presents as like hyper feminine because your estrogen will kick into overdrive to try to combat the testosterone. So a lot of women don't find out that they're carrying around different chromosome sets until they go to have children, and then they'll find out they don't have a uterus. And so like there's different formations, I should say. And so there's a supermodel very famously who came out at like 25 saying, oh my God, I'm actually XY, and didn't know until I couldn't get pregnant.
Yeah, that's a thing. There's a House episode about that with a supermodel who got her dad drunk and had sex with him to blackmail him into letting her essentially do whatever she wanted. And then they found out that she was XY and she had testicular cancer, but her insides
gonads are up. Yeah.
When House tells the dad that she has testicular cancer, he's like, "What is this, a fucking joke?" And he's like, "No, the joke would be me telling you that you're gay." Because I just thought that shit was fucking hilarious.
I really want to rewatch House. Like, that's
one show great. I love House.
So
it's a fun time.
He's such a prick, but it's great. Oh, I don't. They made fun of him on a Scrubs episode where John C. McGinley played House in an episode.
Yeah, I remember that. Was epic.
So I love those shows. Sorry, we're getting off on another tangent. Yeah. This is what happens when you get me on a podcast.
We're a bunch of nerds. It's going to happen, people. It's going to happen. You want to get into David and Jonathan?
David and Jonathan. Oh,
yeah. Grumpy was asking for that in the chat.
Those bitches gay.
Good. Yes, they be gay.
Yeah. That's the same kind of concept where David is married to Saul's daughter Micah. I think it's Micah.
Yes.
But that, again, that's a business transaction. That's David becoming a prince by marrying the king's daughter. And his dowry is great. I don't know if you know this, but his dowry was 200 Philistine foreskins.
Oh, Lord.
Cut the dick tips off. That'll be great. Give that to my wife. My daughter.
Humans are so weird.
It's a coat, and when it gets warm, it expands.
Oh, God.
That was fucked up. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's a position thing. That's, nobles marrying into noble families to like increase their wealth and status.
It's a trade deal.
That's all that was. He didn't even know which daughter he was getting. But the story with Jonathan, that sort of thing where he gives him his robes. Was he wearing them at the time? But no, there's a sort of a biblical marriage kind of aspect to that as far as ceremonially. And Saul even says that David is a son to him twice or something along those lines. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, actually.
Where it refers to Jonathan and Micah, where twice over, you're a son to me twice over, something like that. I'd have to pull it up.
No, that does sound familiar, but I can't remember it off the...
Isn't this 1 Samuel 18? Why do I remember all this shit off the top of my head? It is 1 Samuel 18. Sorry, I would have to look to find it, and I don't want to do that. But there are a few different verses in particular in that section where it's like, it came about when he had finished speaking to Saul that Jonathan committed himself to David, and Jonathan loved him as himself.
Right.
Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. He stripped himself of the robe that was on him, gave it to David with his military gear, including a sword, bow, and belt. And David went into battle wherever Saul sent him and always achieved success. So Saul put him blah, 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 blah. Sorry, so there's that. And then there's a verse in particular that says that their souls were knit together as one. David says that he values Jonathan's love more than the love of any woman. These bitches gay.
I think that's in 2 Samuel. Yeah, no, I mean, it's very straight out of the gate. I know that people like to go ahead and say that they're really good friends and they're roommates or whatever, what have you.
I thought they were roommates.
They were roommates. I mean, this is supposed to be showing that you can have a non-sexual relationship and love your brother as your own, but there's no real like
no other
pussyfooting around the
I defy
soul
anyone
knit
to
means
find me
marriage. The end.
a relationship in the Bible between two men that's described as their souls knit together or that they loved them as themselves, except for Jesus and the apostle he loved. Other than that, which we'll get into that if you want to. I already kind of outed that Jesus is trans. What's up? Sorry, Ricky.
I'll say Richard Carrier believes it was Barnabas.
The apostle?
The disciple whom Jesus loved was
there's I'm trying to remember.
I was
reading
John
somebody
for some
who
reason.
described it as Jonathan. So it's the book of John where it's
John is the most commonly taught, but he thinks it's actually talking about Barnabas. And there's a lot of debate about it, but yeah.
Who's Barnabas? I'm not pulling that one up.
He was the one who died and Jesus was called on to go resurrect.
Got it. The one that I thought that was Lazarus.
No, maybe it was Lazarus.
Barnabas.
It was
Barnabas is one of the 12 apostles, but so he has an apocryphal book that wasn't included in the New Testament.
Yeah.
Along with the book of Timothy. So the book of Timothy is great because it describes Jesus between ages 13 and 30, which is cut from the Bible. And he's a bit of a prick.
Crazy.
He is crazy. He kills people.
Killing people, yeah.
And so there's that.
Righteously. I deny everything.
That ties into the beliefs that Jesus kind of went east and learned in Asia before he came back to Palestine.
Right.
Or what's modern day Palestine, I should say.
I have a little bit about Barnabas, the letter of Barnabas. It said, according to both Paul and the book of Acts, one of his closest apostolic companions was a man named Barnabas, about whom he was otherwise poorly informed. About 70 years after both Paul and Barnabas died, some anonymous authors wrote a letter, actually more of a theological treatise, that eventually came to be attributed to Barnabas. Anyway, it just I had a book that talked about it right in front of me, and I was excited. I was like, "Oh, I can pull this up real quick."
Do we want to touch anything more on David and Jonathan? We kind of went over just the whole souls knit together thing.
Souls knit together. Well, I just wanted to expand on the souls being knit together thing. I think it does expressively. That's not the word I want to use, but it does intentionally say too that they're going to be together in the afterlife. I think that's an important thing in terms of talking about relationships and the way that marriages were described. There's no reason for them to be together in the next life unless they were together.
That kind of ties into sort of the Mormon belief of sealing your family in the temple.
Then there's that. Also, there's another point in there too. So the afterlife thing. Oh, and then of course the whole fact of his love for Jonathan being more than his love for women. I think that's an important one.
Oops, someone gave us 2 Samuel 1:26. Is that the?
That should be the one about the love more than woman.
And I think that was Lazarus, not Barnabas. I think I was mixed up there.
Okay.
Yep, I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. You have been a close friend to me. Your love for me was more wonderful than the love of women. Oh, hiya!
And he had a lot of women. He was over here collecting concubines.
2 Samuel 1:26. Yeah, these bitches gay, okay? You can't, there's no justification for this to me that says that they were not fucking.
No.
Anyway.
And yeah, I think everyone should go back through it. It's a short little book in terms of the Bible. 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, knock them out. It gets pretty interesting.
I'm still in Exodus, man. Because I'm doing it slow. Because I reread a lot to try to like fully get stuff, and I'm double checking.
And you're researching on it on top, yeah.
So that's always fun. So we talked about Leviticus. Sorry, we talked about Arsen Koitai. I don't know if we kind of went over that in its entirety. I feel like we did. We covered that pretty well.
Yeah.
As far as
I think as much as we can for a made-up word.
that Paul was indeed homophobic, which I think it's a valid perspective. But again, those are the words of Paul, and we're talking. Can anybody give me any indication of God's words or Jesus's words where he's like, "Fuck homosexuals"? Because it doesn't exist.
No, it's always
is the closest.
And I'm on a whole entire mission right now to cancel Paul. So if we could just go ahead and do that. I was dropping in the chat last night of the debate too. I was like, let's just cancel him. Like, I'm over him, and we just need to, because he's very anti-sex. So I mean, he's anti-sex for men, women, for men and women, for men and men. Doesn't matter how you look at it. He hated straight sex as much as he hated gay sex, and every verse about gay sex, if we were gonna assume
I think Paul was in the closet, and he was
an incel.
He
was an incel.
That's why
he said that. Oh, that was I just found that person.
Autumn said it, I think.
I don't remember. Oh, Autumn, yeah. I don't remember her full TikTok.
And I was like, I was just gonna do a video about that.
I tagged her and I was like, let me think about all the shit from Paul. Holy shit, you're right. He is an incel.
He says no one should be having sex because he's not having sex. The end.
So that's the thing. It's like Paul's words on. So people want to take 1 Corinthians 6:9 and 1 Timothy 1:10 and be like, the Bible says homosexuality is bad. Then you have to also acknowledge that the Pauline epistles say that women aren't allowed to teach, usurp authority over men, and they shouldn't even talk in church. If you're going to take these two passages about homosexuality literally, and like ignore this sort of etymology of the word and whether or not it meant what people think it means, if you're going to just be like, fuck all of that, I just want to hate gay people, then you also have to take in the rest of the Pauline epistles where dude's misogynistic. And I would say the whole Bible really, honestly, is pretty misogynistic. There's even a passage earlier. Oh, and I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry, but it's. Oh, you know what? It is the same. It's when he's talking about women not holding authority or usurping authority over men.
Yeah.
For Adam was not deceived, but Eve was the one being deceived.
Yeah, they like to say that's because women were uneducated at the time. And they would just the service by asking their husbands questions. So Paul says, save your questions for after, which is somewhat biblical, but at the same time, that's not the entire story. That doesn't mean otherwise.
That kind of ties back to sort of Levitical things where women. So we talk about the Canaanite origins. It's in Deuteronomy. There's a specific forbiddance of having Asherim poles next to altars of Yahweh. And the reason for that is that Asherah being El's wife and the mother of the Elohim, there are 70 Elohim, there are 70 nations in Hebrew mythology. Figure that one out. Anyway, because there was that sort of religious syncretism between El kind of evolving into Yahweh, even though they're separate, Asherah became from being Yahweh's spiritual mother, not his actual mother, because he isn't actually an Elohim. They just called him that to sort of validate his godhood. Where since he essentially kind of took El's position, or that adoption of El into Yahweh, they brought Asherah with him, and Asherah was considered the mother of the Elohim, which at that point kind of translated to angels, sort of. Or even demons, because that's how people treat Baal and Beelzebul, and so that's Beelzebub. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to get off on a tangent about that. That's not this topic. Anyway, but that was the women folk. They were revering Asherah, and they were praying to Asherah and giving Asherah providence, and they're like, well, we need to stop that. All of this worship belongs to Yahweh. So that pisses me off, because it ties into like mysticism and witchcraft and magic, which witchcraft and magic is just honestly alchemy and medicine. They treated women who knew how to like handle herbs around and use them to cure wounds and treat burns and even like psychosis and certain things. They treated that as magic.
Yep.
and they spread that through Europe into Avalon and Britain and Ireland, and with the Druids, because that's all that Druidry was too. Even the witchcraft and Druidry was herbalism, and I feel we lost a lot of knowledge because Christians had this sort of hatred of women and herbalism and alchemy. And
Gnosticism too.
Fuck off, I hate it so much. But
I was gonna ask you actually, touching on you mentioned mysticism. If I could talk, what do you know about any views on homosexuality within mysticism? That's something I haven't looked into actually.
Here's the thing, and so I'm not Jewish. Please correct me if I'm wrong. There's sort of this debate that goes through like Jewish mysticism, Judaism, Kabbalism, all this fun stuff, where it's like, why? Why does the Old Testament forbid male homosexuality, but not lesbianism? Is lesbianism okay? And there's sort of that like, okay, well, is premarital sex okay? Because yes and no. I defy you to find any sort of actual condemnation of premarital sex that refers to women and women or men and men for the same reason. So there's this concept that it's the penetration. It's the act of vaginal penetration between a man and a woman that devalues women in biblical times. Not today. Fuck you. I don't believe any of that shit. I'm saying in biblical times where even though the word virgin in Hebrew actually honestly means like maiden, there was this sort of ideal of proof of virginity. And that's described in Deuteronomy, where, have you had sex with a man before? Which you can't fucking prove that. Like, anyway, sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought. I've been drinking. I did not steal the show. I'm sorry. Am I talking too much? So as long as you hadn't had sex with a man, and the Bible doesn't condemn female homosexuality, like there's that whole argument where it's like that's where they're starting to more now accept, especially like honestly, a lot of sects of Judaism are starting to accept homosexuality more and more so than Christianity is, because there's that acknowledgement. It's like if the Bible forbid male homosexuality, why didn't it also forbid female homosexuality? And we have exactly 2 verses in the Old Testament that even talk about it. And so that's where we get into the concept of, okay, well, how many verses are there in the Bible of divorce, lying, murdering, stealing? Hundreds, potentially. Hundreds. How many are there of homosexuality? There's 2 Levitical verses, Sodom and Gomorrah, if you want to see it that way, which I don't. 1 Timothy, 1 Corinthians, and then Romans. And there's 5. 2 are mistranslations, whether or not you want to accept that, Ricky. 2 originally refer to incestuous relationships, and 1 is a fucking a condemnation of, well, it's not a condemnation, sorry, it's punishment for idolatry. It's an act of God. Yeah. Whereas, Jesus never said anything about homosexuality, but he specifically forbid divorce. He condemns taxpayers and he doesn't condemn homosexuals. So why the fuck do Christians hate homosexuals?
Ooh, that's the topic I think everyone needs to get onto. And I mentioned that in one of my recent videos too, is that people follow Paul a little too closely, just to, bring it back to Paul. They're Paulians. They're Paulians, not Christians. And so if I feel like where the religion as a whole really went off track is when we let other people come in and start trying to prophesize. I feel like if you wanted to be a Christian, they should have really been focused more so on the words of Christ. I don't know why I understand why there's contradictions, but in reality, we should have a Bible that's made of just 40 different gospels and that be the entire Bible. They should have taken out the Old Testament, taken out everyone's writings after, and just kept what was Jesus-centric. And when you have all these different viewpoints coming in, such as Paul's, things get convoluted with political agendas, with personal biases, and you lose what Christ's teachings were. And I think there's just a lot of muddiness for that reason.
Yeah, Christians unknowingly worship Paul more than they do Jesus.
And the Bible. They worship the Bible more than they do anything else. Yeah. It being God-breathed, they put it up there with the Trinity.
I feel like I said that earlier, where it's they never quote Jesus. They quote the Old Testament and they quote Paul when they're trying to spread hate and ignorance. And to an extent, I suppose you could say, well, if they worship the Bible is supposed to be Jesus as far as the Word of God.
Right.
And yeah, that fucking line about all the scriptures being God breathed. So is slavery okay? Because that's in the Bible. There's all sorts of verses about how to treat your slave. How about rape? That's Deuteronomy. Oh, is that 12:13? Sorry, I'll look it up. But anyway, where it describes that if a man finds a woman who is not even given to be betrothed or has never had sex before, and he rapes her, she has to marry him. There is a reason that verse exists.
Yeah.
It was supposed to define, or not define, but defend or protect women from being like thrown out or mistreated because they were worthless at that point. Again, biblically speaking, I don't believe this shit. By forcing the person who raped them to marry them and provide for them for all their days. He may never put her away. He may never divorce her. That's what it exists for, but it's still fucked up. And if the scriptures were God breathed and God was benevolent, then how hard is it to say, hey, just don't fucking rape people. Don't own people.
Yeah, it's very clear in some points about what the Bible teaches is right and wrong, and it's very vague in others. And it's suspicious.
It is suspicious, and I think that's always just been the best argument, I guess, or I don't even want to say argument, but like the best live and let live message about homosexuality is if it were such a problem. Because I mean, I do. I agree with Ricky on the point that I think Leviticus is not necessarily a mistranslation. I think it is condemning homosexual acts, but like I said, I think it's about the cleanliness of the temple and the purification that has to come in before that. And I think, sure, even Paul is probably condemning homosexuality, but I think the important thing to remember is, like, what year was it? Like, until 2016, America doesn't allow for gay marriage. So were they homophobic 2,000 years ago? Yeah, probably. Does it mean that it should continue on? Does it mean that it is a direct commandment from God? No. And I think keeping politics in mind, it's extremely important to remember that if they hated women, they hated gay people, they hated witches, it doesn't mean we should go around stoning everybody.
Yeah,
times change.
So that ties into, like, is God changing in his morality? Which there's a verse, Exodus 4, God is going to kill Moses and changes his mind. That's really funny. And I say it's funny because he changes his mind because, who is it? Sorry, Zipporah? Zipporah cuts the foreskin off of her son and touches it to Moses' feet. It's like, you're a bridegroom to me. And after that, Yahweh's like, okay, I'm not going to murder you anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know. I'm trying to say in the thing, if somebody else was running the button, they could pick the words, I guess. Hold on. So, I was going to talk about something.
Grumpy was saying the Gospels wouldn't exist without Paul, and that's accurate. The Gospels use Paul as a source material, as a
first-person source, even though he wasn't.
As well, they've also there's also evidence that they use Josephus for their, especially in Luke. I think it is most obvious. I'm still looking into that personally, but yeah.
Even if Josephus's account was valid, that's Paul, who wasn't alive when Jesus was alive, and Josephus. That's two accounts. Whereas, like, there are other figures that are extra biblical, or certain important figures that have all these different historical authors or historians, I should say. That was a dumb way to phrase that. Who wrote about them? And Jesus being considered the Messiah by the people at the time, according to the Bible, would have been an important enough figure that many different people would have written about him. And like you said, there are certain things in the Bible that just don't line up historically speaking. Pontius Pilate would never have released a murderer because a crowd said so. There was no, yearly annual thing about that.
There was no historical practice of that kind. Like I said in the Bible, you could choose to release a prisoner. Pilate would have never released a murderer, and Barnabas was even a traitor. He would have never released him in the interest of executing an innocent man. But that practice mimics the atonement ritual of choosing having two goats, and you choose one as a scapegoat, and then you sacrifice it to atone for your sins. It's the same thing.
Was that you were talking to me about that has something to do with Passover? Sorry, I'm trying to. Which that's a thing that kind of cracks me up, because the King James version of the Bible in that passage regarding when Jesus died uses the word Easter. Easter didn't exist until, well, I mean, it did exist, but it was a pagan holiday. Easter didn't exist until after
Nicaea.
Yeah, obviously. So that's one of those really funny people like, oh, the word of God is perfect and translations are always perfect. No, the fuck they aren't.
Yeah.
Which you were gotten into earlier. You were like, okay, maybe Paul, or you said that you thought that Paul was indeed condemning homosexuality. That verse. So I got into it with somebody earlier who's like, every version of the Bible uses the word homosexual for arsen coitai. No, it doesn't. There's several different versions, and the German in particular, the German version of the Bible has used the word pedophile in place of arsen coitai for over 500 years. Mm-hmm. And that's what it meant in context. Mm-hmm. You look at that, and as I said before, sorry, that sounded ruder than I meant it. I'm just a little tips. But child sex slaves, pedophiles, and the kidnappers who procure the child sex slaves. Those three words are connected in line. And then, I want to provide a couple of materials. Like I said, people want to pretend like it's so cut and dry, and it's like if you Google that word, arseno coitai, the first page of Google is a bunch of people like debating its meaning. And the one that I'm going to provide, I'm going to put it in the description after the stream is over. And I dropped it in the chat earlier. That specifically goes over like all these different viewpoints of so I really like it for that reason, because it discusses the different viewpoints and then provides the author's viewpoint. Mm-hmm. And so there's that. And then I wanted to touch back on Sophia briefly, because I wanted to give credit to this author. So one of the indications in the Bible for Jesus being Sophia, Paul refers to Christ as the power of God and the wisdom, Sophia in Greek, the wisdom of God in 1 Corinthians 1:24, and states that Christ became for us wisdom from God, Sophia, 1 Corinthians 1:30. The book of Proverbs 4:11, 22, and 26 describes wisdom as the way, the life, and the path. And, Jesus is supposed to be the way, the truth, and the life. And even and I thought I had it pulled up, Proverbs 3, where is it? Sorry, this is bad. Okay. Blessed is the person who finds wisdom, and one who obtains understanding, for her profit is better than the profit of silver, produce better than gold. Long life is in her right hand, and her left are riches and honor. All her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. And there's this idea in Christian theology that the tree of life is Jesus, that John 3:16, through Jesus you get everlasting life. So that's another, so that's Proverbs 3, 4, and 8. Talk about wisdom personified as a woman. So that just ties back to Jesus being trans. Everybody drink.
Done.
Anyway, sorry, but that's Jan Aldridge Clanton, In Search of the Christ, Sophia, an inclusive Christology for liberating Christians. And I'll drop this in the chat along with her thing here. Sorry. But that's a book. I need to buy it. I read the EPUB for it. I did a lot of prep for
And then back to Gnosticism. Sophia is the one who birthed the demiurge. So Sophia coming down in Jesus' form is Sophia saving us from a mistake that she made in creating the demiurge who created the universe. Just to throw you all a little loop.
That ties back people. So there's no indication in the Bible of God being omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, none of that. In fact, in Sodom and Gomorrah, he sends the angels down to view Sodom and Gomorrah's wickedness for himself.
As the watchers,
it means he can't see it from heaven, from the firmament. That's a fun topic. I think we talked about that last time. Anyway, sorry. where as far as God making mistakes, God regretted making humanity in Noah's Ark. That's why he sent the flood.
He
Supposedly,
regretted making Saul king.
yeah. There's a lot, and so that's a great part actually. So you talk about he regretted making Saul a king. There's a verse in the Bible that's respect the governing authorities, for there is no authority except established by God. That means that every government that's in place, every politician that's in power was established by God. So stop hating on Biden, you hypocrites. Sorry.
And Obama, that's the one. You can't call Obama the Antichrist if he was positioned there. But, well, that's not true, because I do figure that the Antichrist is going to be, somebody who's in power.
It's funny when
position,
Obama's president, he's the Antichrist, and then when Trump's president, he's chosen by God to be our
people thought he was the second coming of Jesus, and it's anything about this man's life? He keeps a book of Hitler's speeches in his bedside table.
Yes, but
it does. It's here's the thing. So the Antichrist, when we talked about this before, the Antichrist is Nero Caesar. 666 is Nero Caesar written in Hebrew and interpreted numerically.
It's a code language.
John literally calls it a cipher in Revelation. He's like, it takes somebody with wisdom and insight to understand this. The number is the name of a man.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. So there's this myth. It's the Nero Redivivus legend. There's an idea. So Nero was dead by the time John wrote Revelation, but there was this idea that Nero would come back from the death, which would make him parallel to Christ, insofar as somebody who died and was resurrected.
I've not heard of this.
You haven't heard of the Nero Redivivus legend?
No, somehow.
Right, that's obscure bullshit. I don't know why I said it like that. Sorry. So that's why Nero is the Antichrist, is because Nero was believed to come back from the death.
You know what?
Here's
this is
the thing.
familiar.
Is it?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. That Trump is kind of a shoo-in to be Nero resurrected.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't know if you have seen the documentary The Family on Netflix, but it talks about...
I haven't been meaning to.
You have to watch it. It's talking about The Family. Yeah. It talks about Washington and the group of Christians that they're actually kind of what I was talking about, in they only follow Christ. They're not Christians as a religion. They only follow Christ. But there's a specific group. That's what I'm saying. But they're scary. So their whole entire goal is to essentially insert themselves into Washington politics. And so they have a house where they have men and then women on the opposite side of the street, where they do a kumbaya commune. And then they host every year, they have the President's Breakfast, which world dignitaries come from all across the world. Every country leader, different types of treaty makers and lawmakers come. They all talk politics and business off the record. And that's where most of our foreign trade things happen. So every president for the past 40 years has to submit to the will of the family. Because they hold so much power and prestige just through reputation and connections.
Is the family the fucking Rothschilds? What is this?
No, I can't remember the guy's name who made it, but it's just this one guy. I think he's still alive. He just made it in the 60s or 70s, and just gets these people together and just inserted himself into every Washington dealing until where we are now. So essentially, who they want elected is who they can try to campaign to get elected. Trump was put there for the reason that they thought he was going to bring in the apocalypse, essentially, is what it works out to. They want an Antichrist in power, and they want him to fulfill the prophecy. They want to bring on
Trump in power because they thought he was the Antichrist?
They thought he was going to bring on the end times.
That's fucking amazing. I love that. I will have to watch this now. Because that's what I had that thought when I was kind of looking into it again. That I'm if ever there was a man in my lifetime that I would compare to Nero Caesar to be that might be the Antichrist, it would be fucking Trump. The dude is evil. I'm sorry. He is very much provably evil. He's an idolater, which he worships himself. He's an adulterer.
Prideful.
He's a racist. He's a bigot. He's an asshole. He's fucking evil.
He's a glutton.
Yeah.
He's a glutton. Oh my god! Can you imagine being that rich and eating fucking McDonald's all the time?
I could, because I love McDonald's.
I fucking hate McDonald's. I like the McGriddle, and that's the only thing from McDonald's that I like.
McGriddle and Big Mac.
Big Mac. Oh, now I want a Big Mac.
I have to eat every stream. It's a rule now.
I really like
that who will appreciate it.
Wendy's spicy chicken sandwiches are really good too.
Well, I actually think this went really well, and we covered all the religious topics that I kind of wanted us to go over just regarding homosexuality in the Bible. I don't know if you all have anything like as far as that goes.
National Prayer Breakfast. That's what I was. Sorry.
Hot and spicy
He
with cheese.
attended those. I remember him attending the National Prayer Breakfast. Ugh. I'm sorry, but for fast food, for burgers, I honestly like Burger King over McDonald's. I think they taste better. I
can
the
agree
fries
with that.
better. And you know what? It's the vegans' fault because they found out that the McDonald's fries were fried in bacon fat or beef fat or something. There was tallow.
Seasoning. They had like ground meat in the seasoning.
They used to be delicious, and they're disgusting now.
Agree.
I don't like McDonald's. I'll avoid it if I can. Anyway,
Chick-fil-A oil's theirs in peanut oil, which is more expensive than like olive oil or anything that.
you know, if you want fries boiled in peanut oil, you go to Five Guys because Chick-fil-A is evil.
Yeah.
I'm just going to declare everything is evil. That'll be the next. This is evil.
Chick-fil-A was my
Chick-fil-A
first job when I was 15. That was my first job.
So we can tie the Mormon Church to the racism of Christianity and the homophobia of Christianity. The Mormon Church spent $30 million in tithing donations to the church. They spent it fighting Prop 8 in California in 2008. And then in 2014, gay marriage was... So here's the thing. Gay marriage wasn't legalized in 2014. Gay marriage by the Constitution has always been legal in America. What happened in 2014 is that the Supreme Court recognized that and made banning gay marriage unconstitutional. So that's how I like to phrase it. Gay marriage has been legal in the United States for 250-something years. Sorry. But the governments, the state governments and the federal government, violated the Constitution by banning gay marriage. That's how that fucking plays out. And that's as per the 14th Amendment or the 13th Amendment. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, sorry. Fuck was I saying? Oh, there was that. And then additionally, the Mormon Church didn't give black men the ability to hold the priesthood until 1978. And they didn't change their mind because of civil rights or because they realized that they were immoral bastards. They changed their mind because other college football teams in the Mountain West, I think, would not play with BYU because they didn't have black players, because they were racist.
Sure.
Dan Smith, BYU. Anyway, sorry.
We can talk more about that next week when we have Poogie Bear.
Fuck yeah, that'll come up for sure.
Mormonism. So are we ready to go into our nerd segment?
Let's go into our nerd segment. You don't watch Doctor Who?
I've never gotten into Doctor Who.
Have you tried?
I still have to send you that PS Vita.
TV media. I don't watch TV very much.
You have to.
It's fair enough.
That's fair.
And when I do, I usually rewatch a show that I've watched 1,000 times because it's like a comfort thing. You know, like I've seen Scrubs beginning to end like 4 times, Community like 8 times, IT Crowd like 8 times.
You will see me in Community.
We talked about how dumb it is that they took down that season 2 episode on D&D. That's the stupidest thing. They acknowledge that it's a hate crime in the beginning of the video, and he's not wearing blackface. He's painted as a drow elf. That's why he has literal black skin, and it's actually kind of a purple tint, not blackface. But he doesn't have the red lips.
I think it was just like Yahoo.
The black lady in the show is like, are we going to acknowledge the hate crime at the table? They acknowledged that it was kind of fucked up. That was the point of the joke.
Do you want a fun story? Are we talking Community?
We can talk Community.
Well, okay. So I was regular on Community for 3 seasons as background. Chile. So
what?
That's what I was saying. You'll see me in Community if you go back and rewatch it. Now that you know me, you're gonna be like, what? So, but there's fun stories about that. So, like Chevy Chase, like complete asshole, right? And so he's the worst. He's also like slipping. He's just old, I think. But so the reason why he just disappears mid-show is because he actually called Yvette Nicole Brown the N-word hard R on set, and we shut it all down. She walked out and says, "I'm not doing this. He has to go, or I'm out." And they just were like, "We are gonna still pay you. You're still executive producer. You're no longer allowed to be on set.
Are you gonna get sued for saying this on the internet?"
Yeah, how can you say this?
It should be well known. I'm pretty sure it's well known. If you look into it.
All I heard is like he complained constantly about the long hours,
You know what? I'm not going to be able to watch this
he
fucking
would
show
just like
normally
disappear
now.
when he was done with the day. He was just walk off set like mid scene. He doesn't care.
I'm going to
He's
be
old,
staring
though.
in the background for this beautiful curly-haired
Yeah.
bastard.
It's not hard to
I won't
miss.
be able
I
to
was
watch the
always
show.
the stony hippie character, of course.
Oh my god, I did see you. Were you playing hacky sack?
I was playing hacky sack.
Yes.
I didn't
Holy
think it
shit,
was
that
you,
was
but I was
you.
like, oh, that guy looks familiar.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
What?
That's awesome.
I had no idea who we brought into our live tonight.
That's fucking
Oh.
amazing. I'm gonna have a new appreciation for the show. That's fucking great.
I have so many questions. Just go. Just talk. Just tell us.
Just talk. I don't know. I don't have a lot.
What are some
I don't
crazy
think.
stories, or like is anybody
You got anything other than
That was-
Chevy
that was-
Chase saying the N word on
Chevy just being crazy. I mean, everything else is pretty cool. Everyone there is cool. That set was actually really good because everyone was really laid back because it was a comedy show, and I mean, they work or whatever, but everyone's always just experimenting with like new ideas. It was also a really good show for money because they always try to like drive up their hours. So they would hire background to do absolutely nothing. Like one day I had a 16-hour day and we didn't shoot a single scene until the very last hour. And it was when they made forts all around the school. And we just had to go in there and go like this for 10 minutes. They did
such
one
a
take
good
of the
episode.
hallway and I
I've
walked out
seen-
with like double time, overtime. And I'm like, that's why you kept us here all day, was to do this. Literally any grip could do
That
that.
sounds like the
So I'm
military
only on
too.
season 1 of Community, but I've seen a lot of the clips on YouTube and whatnot just because it pops up and I'm like, "Ah, I need to watch the show.
I've
So
seen it beginning
that's
to
like my
end,
favorite part that
9
I've seen
times.
is the
I'm not
fucking
kidding.
pillow fort thing. They take
Yeah.
down one fucking stick and the whole thing falls. I love that.
Yeah.
I love how they made it like a documentary. Like you probably haven't seen it, Mason, but they make it like a documentary, and they have a what's his name narrating it.
Abed?
No, who voiced like Goliath in Gargoyles. I forget his name.
Oh, that's James Earl Jones, isn't it?
No, not
Goliath?
a James Earl Jones. The other black guy with the voice.
Now I'm the racist. Is it? So hold on, Gargoyles.
I can't
That's
remember
not the
his-
same as
Sean
Shredder,
James
is it? Uncle Phil?
I can't remember
Who
now.
the fuck voices
Uncle
Someone in the
Phil.
comments help us out.
Who
He's
voices
on
Goliath?
somebody. Anyway, that's beside the point. But it was made out like a just
The other
verbatim,
black guy.
just documentary.
Yeah.
Oh, Keith
It was-
David.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Keith
Oh, I do know him. He's on Supernatural. He's Bobby's friend on Supernatural,
is
isn't he? Isn't he? Now I'm racist again. I'm an asshole. I'm gonna stop talking.
Oh no.
Okay, they all look alike.
Oh shit, he's Al Simmons in Spawn. He does not look like the guy who plays Al
Yes,
Simmons
yes,
in
he
Spawn.
voices Spawn.
I gotta stop.
Another
talking.
fun fact, I know
Asshole.
you're a Spawn nerd. So my very first
Oh.
roommate, her name was Jahari, right? So her father, or I should say stepfather, because like married her mom when she was like 4, is Michael J. White, the original Spawn, in the movie version of Spawn.
Right.
So I'm good friends with him.
If he's not
Really?
Bobby's
Yeah.
friend on fucking, then I do look like an asshole. Shame on me. Who was it? Somebody got Samuel L. Jackson confused with. Oh fuck! I know his name and it's not coming to me. Sorry. On set, and he's like, "Do you think I'm this guy?"
Wait, were you a regular on Glee?
Yeah.
Really?
Those are my two. Those are my bread and butter shows. Was Community and Glee.
When were you on
Like
Glee?
every other day. I did every single season of Glee. The last season I didn't do background. I was a stand-in for like 2 episodes, but every single season I was participating.
I only saw
Rufus.
bits and pieces of Glee. My ex-wife was really into it at the time.
I stopped watching it after Corey died. I couldn't get behind it. I just work it and then never look at it again.
Really?
Fuck! I am an asshole. That's Stephen Williams, not Keith David. I apologize to everybody that I cannot keep these actors straight.
Oh no. Falling into the stereotype.
So,
Damn,
what-
he looked
did
just
you have
like-
any roles in the Fistful of Paintballs episode?
No.
Oh.
I did
I'm
not.
gonna
I
have to
don't
rewatch
recognize
Glee.
that
I only
one.
watched like the
My
first 3 seasons of Glee.
That's Community, right? You're talking about Community?
Yeah,
Paintballs? Yeah, no,
What was your-
my favorite scene was like probably of all time, not of Community, but my favorite
Yeah,
scene of all time is the food fight episode. Epic.
Mm,
It was just
that was
8
good.
hours of throwing food, and I don't know, it's every kid's dream to have a
Right.
full-on food fight and have to do it for 8 hours, I guess.
So that was your favorite moment.
It's my
That's-
favorite TV experience for sure. Yeah.
You know, I don't know how everybody else had like their high school experience was, But that whole situation with like, first of all, dumping slushies on people. One, why would you waste slushies? And two, if anybody ever did that in my school, they'd have been expelled.
Oh, probably not expelled. Not in my school. We've had similar things, but suspended or something. But
I would have.
Why would you waste slushies? I think that's the most fair point that you can make.
I am a very violent person. You might not know it from my TikToks, except I do get angry sometimes. If anybody had ever, because I got bullied a lot in school, but if anybody had ever thrown a slushie on me, I'd be in jail. I'd have gone to juvie. I would have reacted so very badly. Like, I had no self-control as a teenager that I stuffed a kid in a trash can once. That was fun. So yeah, I'm just like, I don't. That was the most unrealistic part for me for Glee, because I'm like, if anybody ever did that to me, I wouldn't just stand there and take it. How does
it was supposed to be like a running joke? It wasn't supposed to be an aggression thing. It was supposed to be like everyone gets slushied. It's just what they do at McKinley High. I think that's how it was supposed to be coming off. It wasn't supposed to be like a bullying tactic. It was like you got slushy.
It definitely seemed like a bullying tactic, because they didn't do it to Finn and the Mohawk kid. Fuck, what was his name? Riley? Huck. Oh, yeah. Love Huck. Sorry, I haven't watched Glee since like 20.
So what was your favorite moment on Community?
Oh, that was my favorite moment. The food fight.
Oh, I thought that was on Glee.
No, that was Community. That was a Community thing.
Okay. I got off on Glee. Food fights made me think of high school. There was a food fight in Community.
I don't think we even had a cafeteria in Glee. There was the outside.
There was the we called that the quad in
the quad.
High. I don't know if that's what they called it in Glee. But that's where they did like lunch scenes.
Right.
Because they did One Love in the quad. I only watched the first 2 or 3 seasons of Glee. I stopped round about the time that Rachel and oh Jesus, I can't remember anybody's fucking names in the show. Kurt. Rachel and Kurt went to New York. Like, I saw like 2 or 3 episodes from then, and then that's when I kind of stopped. Because they jumped the shark for me. I don't know about everybody else. But they had like 7 seasons after that, didn't they? How long did Glee go for?
7 seasons. 7? 6? There was 6 or 7. I can't remember now.
I like the music. Anyway, sorry. I don't know. I wanted to talk about Doctor Who. I had no idea you were an extra on fucking Community.
I could tie it into Doctor Who. So I also did background. This is before I was a Whovian. I did background on, why am I forgetting it now? Torchwood. So there's an episode where Torchwood comes to America. I think it's like one of the season finales, if I remember correctly. And they wouldn't tell us what the project was. And there's like untitled projects they wanted to keep it under wrap that Torchwood was coming to America, or that Torchwood was even a thing, I think, because it was still not aired. And I remember everyone on set. Everyone on set was freaking out about Jack. And they're like, oh my God, it's Captain Jack. Oh my God, it's Captain Jack. And like they put it together right away that this was going to be a Who spinoff. And I was like,
I would do horrible things.
I've never seen it. So I was like, I guess, like, he's pretty cool, I guess.
I haven't seen Torchwood, but I need to, because Captain Jack Harness is my favorite character from all
it's good.
And I have the classic seasons. I have every episode of Doctor Who that is saved, because there are a couple of lost episodes.
Yeah.
I even have a couple of the lost episodes. So
see, I never got into the old ones. Like I tried after I finished the first new series, and I can't get into them. Yeah,
the first 2 Doctors are honestly kind of boring, but the 3rd Doctor's pretty good, and then the 4th Doctor's when they like that's when it really kind of picks up.
Poor Ricky's like,
sorry, you had nothing to contribute to Doctor Who. You really need to watch. So I know that we share the same favorite Doctor.
Yes, there's my husband.
Oh, I need to watch him in Crowley. Or I don't know the name of that show.
Good Omens.
Fallen Angel Crowley.
Good Omens is a good show. You need to read it first though, because the book is amazing. Terry Pratchett.
I need to watch that. So he's fucking gold in everything he touches. He's Casanova. He was Barty Crouch Jr. in fucking Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky, you said you watched the movies when we were talking earlier.
I've seen the movie.
He did great
recollection of that.
God, he's done. I think he did it for stage, but then they did a film adaptation. Oh God, who was he? He played a king.
King Lear.
It might have been King Lear.
I know he did a lot of Shakespeare for stage, because he did that with Catherine Tate.
You know who else did a lot of stage stuff that I didn't know? Both Patrick Stewart and Ian McClellan did a lot of like actual theater. And
I feel like it's a very British thing to start in theater, and then that's why they're all so like classically trained as actors. Like I think England has some of the best actors.
Oh, you want to talk about? Well, he's Irish, isn't he? Hold on. Oh my God, Liam Neeson. So as Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson is classically trained in sword fighting, and so every other lightsaber duel is just clang, 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 clang. But Liam Neeson knew actual sword fighting and used it on set, so he's the only like Jedi master in all of the movies that knows what the fuck he's doing, and it looks badass when he does it.
If you watch him and you watch Mace Windu, Mace Windu, his form is all fucked up. He looks stupid, and he's supposed to be the because his purple lightsaber is the most highly skilled fighter in the lightsaber arts. But
so there's funny things about that, because that is true. The purple lightsaber is given to specific Jedi masters who are like top at sword artistry lightsaber battles anyway. And Mace Windu's is specific. First of all, there's all shit in the EU where he found his lightsaber and he was given like prophetic visions to go get it. But he specifically uses a style of lightsaber dueling that dips into the dark side without becoming overcome by the dark side. My most popular TikTok video has like 400,000 likes. It is nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with me. It was a question somebody asked for. It's like, what's your favorite celebrity interview moment? And I just took a fucking video of my camera recording the screen. And it's an interview that Samuel L. Jackson gave to, oh God, he's the gay British talk show host. Glenn? Not Glenn. That's not right. Oh my God.
Graham Norton.
Graham Norton. Sorry. Fuck me. And he explains why he has a purple lightsaber. The reason that Mace Windu has a purple lightsaber, because he never uses it in season 1. In season 2, George Lucas came to him and he's like, there's this big long lightsaber duel. We're looking at like, there's a word for it. You might know, actor man. Where there's like, it's just the pictures of what they want to do. It's not where they have like the layout of the scene.
A storytelling?
Storyboard. So they have the storyboard of the big battle with like, several hundred Jedi Masters fighting the Separatists, droids and whatnot. And Mace is looking at it and he's like, how the fuck am I supposed to see myself in this? So he's like, I want a purple lightsaber. It's like, well, lightsabers are green or lightsabers are blue. Yeah, but I want a purple one.
Yeah.
But the whole reason is that he wanted to be able to see himself in this battle. And he's like, so now that, I watched that movie and then we're seeing all these lightsabers going off. I'm like, there's me. I'm right there.
That's exactly right. That's all he wanted. Like, God damn.
That's fucking hilarious that like they came up with all this shit in the EU, because prior to this it was green and blue for the natural Kyber crystals and then red for the synthetic ones. And then after Mace Windu's like, I want a purple lightsaber, now all of a sudden in the EU there's all kinds of oranges and blacks and whites and shit. It's great.
I know nothing about Star Wars. Now I'm out of depth. I'm like,
Anglophile? What's an
going
Anglo?
Back to British actors being better and us talking about House earlier, Hugh Laurie.
Laurie's fucking great.
And he was picked above some like high caliber people for that role.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Have y'all heard any of his music, by the way?
He has music?
Yeah, he's a rock star. He plays the guitar in House all the time.
What?
He does blues music, and it's fucking legit. It's really good.
I did not know
look
that.
Up on Spotify. Just type in Hugh Laurie on Spotify. And he does all of it by himself. He does his own
Christopher
piano,
Lee.
guitar, his own singing.
Christopher Lee does metal
very
music.
Talented individual.
Who's Christopher Lee?
Christopher Lee is Sauron, the evil wizard, and he's also Count Dooku, I think, isn't he? This is where we find out that I'm not just dumb about black actors. I don't know who anybody is. Isn't he Count Dooku?
The bad guy in the first Deadpool.
It's Christopher Lee.
Francis.
Okay, so that makes me look like more of a racist. I'm sorry.
It's all good. He's a British rapper.
Who?
The bad guy or the antagonist in the first Deadpool movie. Ajax. Or he's a British
Francis.
rapper. He's on Spotify.
Oh, that's cool. I actually low-key kind of like British rap, but I also like French rap. I think we were talking before about the movie Barrier 13. If you haven't seen that, it's fucking amazing. The father of modern parkour, David
Frank.
Frank?
No, it begins an F. I think he's French. But
He
yeah,
is
like,
French,
originated
but he's got like a
France.
very simple name. I feel like is it David Bell? Fuck, we were both way off. David
What?
Bell, yeah, David Bell, and then the guy who stars alongside him is in a lot of shit. Yeah, so there's Barrier 13, and then they made a second one. It's not as good, but the first one's fucking amazing. And there's French rap that kind of plays throughout as part of the soundtrack, and I don't know what the fuck they're saying, but it gets me hype. But that's a great fucking. We're talking about all kinds of shit that you need to go watch, and Barrier 13 is one of them. It's like
Barrier
Banaloo 13 in French. You could probably find it on Netflix. It might even be on YouTube. It's an old movie, but it's great. Yeah, they did an English version of it too. You know how sometimes they'll take foreign movies and make French or make English versions of it. They did it. They did Repo the Genetic Opera. They made a version of it that wasn't a rock opera, and it was terrible.
Well, what's the point of? Oh, I think I've seen that. I think I tried, and I was
called
like,
Repo Man or something.
Yeah,
and it's
Repo
like
Man.
the same thing, but it was
so boring. It takes all of the camp and out of like the whole
talking
entire
about
angle
British
of it.
actors. Oh fuck, who plays Giles in Buffy? Because he's Repo Man. Anthony
I don't know his name.
Michael something. Am I fucking that up? Gerard Butler's the Phantom. Yeah. There's
There's corrections
so many
in the
musical
chat. They're on
movies.
it. So I mean,
Wait,
they'll
Gerard-
correct you. There's Saruman, not Sauron. By the way, over
Did
there,
I say
Nathan.
Sauron?
You said Sauron.
I meant to say
Sauron.
Saruman. I know the difference. I
Sauron.
have the books.
And
Repo the
David
Genetic
Tennant
Opera
was
is a
in
goddamn
Hamlet.
masterpiece. Here's the thing. The the grave robber is the screenwriter, the person who wrote it, and he's kind of a transphobic piece of shit.
Oh.
But what's funny is like because he came out as a transphobe, people are treating the grave robber as a female to male transgender individual and omnisexual. But he's transphobic and homophobic. So that's just a way to kind of shit on the Anthony Stewart Head. Thank you. I knew it was Anthony something.
You
Anthony
guys in
Stewart
the
Head.
chats are fucking on it.
They are on it.
We
So here's the thing. Natalie says, everybody drink.
I think I'm out of my tea.
I've spoken fun. Anyway, no, Anthony Stewart Head, though. So his actual accent is kind of the more like punk British, almost Cockney kind of accent. And the accent that he gives as Repo Man and as Giles in Buffy is that sort of posh kind of accent.
Right.
James Marsters plays Spike. The accent that he does in Buffy, he based that on how Anthony Stewart Head actually talks. And so watching Buffy growing up and like Spike and Willow were kind of my sexual awakening alongside David Bowie in Labyrinth. But Spike...
Okay, I can see that. I can see both of those.
Spike disappointed me so much because like I'm seeing that and I'm loving it and it's the voice more than anything else.
Yeah.
And then I hear him in interviews and he's I want to say he's Southern American.
Oh.
He has
what's his natural? That sounds. I mean, that I think you're nailing the head with that. Like thinking about I didn't watch it until I was an adult, but going over like my little crush on Spike, it was always the voice. It was not so much. I think I guess sometimes the like swagger or like the powerful domination aspect of it, but the voice was definitely the biggest turn on.
It's the voice, and then down here is the attitude
presence about him, is his aura or whatever you want to call it. There's something about him.
Yeah,
I do terrible things to James Marsters, but he has to speak in that accent.
And then there's David Bowie.
You know what? Actually, I take that back because he was Piccolo in that terrible Dragon Ball fucking movie.
Was he?
Yeah,
What?
he's Piccolo.
No shit.
Go watch it. That's fucking Spike. I maybe I'm fucked up right now because I'm a little tips, but I'm 99% sure that Piccolo in the live action fucking.
You're usually right about these things, so I'm gonna holy shit. Although I don't want to watch it again to verify because it's painful to see.
Yeah, it's James Marsters. He plays Lord Piccolo.
Wow.
They make a joke about the live action on Dragon Ball Z Abridged where they're like, Goku hits his head really hard and he's like, God, this reminds me of high school when all the guys were making fun of me and Chi-Chi didn't want to date me. And how hard did I hit my head? It's because I don't know.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I can fucking wax poetic on for hours is Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z. That was my brother's thing. I never got into Dragon Ball Z.
Did you like anime at all?
Okay, so here's the thing. When I was in high school, I was really into manga, but I never got into anime, which is really strange because I mean a lot of my favorite mangas were animes, and something about the way the story moves, or I don't know what it is, but anime gets on me. I do like Yu-Gi-Oh! Sorry, correction. I did watch Yu-Gi-Oh! Religiously.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a little better. So here's the thing about Dragon Ball Z. So people like to make fun of the yelling and the fighting. In Dragon Ball Z, the reason that it's so drawn out, so like Frieza's like, the planet will blow up in 5 minutes, and then it's 9 episodes later that the fucking planet explodes. The reason is because Shonen Jump was airing chapters of Dragon Ball Z, and the anime got ahead of the manga, so they had to slow it down, and they did that by adding a shitload of another.
But it's not just Dragon Ball Z. That applies to like most animated movies for me.
I watched when I was deployed in Iraq. I watched the Dragon Ball Z saga from beginning of the Raditz saga all the way to Majin Buu, and that took like 6 months of my deployment. Like
that's one way to do it. Yeah. My last deployment was a lot of Skyrim. I finally beat Skyrim in 2018 because I was deployed. I had it on the Switch, so I couldn't cheat. Because if I am able to cheat, I get bored pretty easy. And I was deployed. I had nothing else to do. So that's fucking. You have this might get me in trouble. You have these external hard drives in the military, very common, and then people will just set them up on one person's computer, and you just kind of move everything over. And I'm not talking about what you move over, but that's where you waste a lot of your time, is the shit that you get from these fucking hard drives from everybody in the military. And you kind of got to double check.
Okay, thank you.
I'll say it.
What'd you say?
Say it's porn.
I had a confused look on my face. I was like trying to think of things that you would move.
It's movies and like TV shows too, but it's also porn because you don't know if you have internet when you get over there. So like a lot of guys pre-download a ton of shit and they put it on their hard drive. And
you kind of have to vet it.
Are you watching this in a public setting? Where are you consuming this? Okay.
Sometimes.
Jackal Twinkie says he deployed in 2005 and had to deal with Need for Speed Underground 2.
Oh,
that would suck. I brought my Switch with me to Kuwait and then Iraq. So
I was in 2009 when the Switch was not a thing. I didn't have a video game system to play when I was there. So I actually just had DVDs. I had like 20 DVDs.
You could have had a Game Boy?
Watched them. Yeah, I just watched like The Matrix and V for Vendetta and The Crow and a bunch of other movies. I watched them just over and over and over and over again. Like,
that's a mood though. Some movies warrant watching over and over and over again, and V for Vendetta is one of them. The movie was great. The book maybe a little better. Same with The Watchmen. The graphic novel for The Watchmen, so much better than the fucking movie. But the movie's still good.
That explains too, I think, though, Ricky, why you said that you rewatch things over and over again for comfort. I feel like that's probably harkening back to when you're deployed.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of truth to that. It's sort of why we listen to the same music and we're not so as welcoming to new types of music. Where we it's.
I think that might be an ADHD thing because I do that too.
A whole tangent about that,
where I listen to the same fucking album over and over again for weeks.
But yeah. All right. So when you, no, I'm not gonna. I could talk for a long time about music and how it affects the brain and how we we listen to the things and how the music industry uses radio and public places to. Anyway,
we can get into that. Why don't we make that our topic?
We're already 2 hours and 20 minutes in.
Why don't we make music our nerd topic for next time? I feel like Poogie Bear could probably wax poetic on music. I'll talk to him about it. I did want to make one more comment just about Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball. Sorry, just real quick. GT is not that bad. There are moments in GT that I fucking hated. There's one moment in particular where they're looking for the galactic Dragon Balls or whatever they are, and they're walking up this hill, and then Goku stumbles and falls off, and they're like rush to catch him, and I'm like, you can fly! That's about my worst moment in GT, was that sort of filler that didn't make any fucking sense. But there's a couple there's one scene in particular that fucking hits me really hard, and it's when Baby has taken over everybody on Earth, and Bulma's one of them, and Bulma like says something really mean and angry to Goku, and Goku's like, baby, I'll never forgive you for this. And if you think about it, the way that they kind of phrase it is very emotional, because Bulma is the first human that Goku met besides Grandpa Gohan. He's the first human that Goku met after his grandfather died, and she's his first friend. And Beatty made her like despise him and hate him. So he's like, I'm never going to forgive you for this. That was like, oh, that fucking hit me hard. That sounded sexual. That's not how I meant that. I don't know why I keep leaning into my microphone. I'm being fucking weird.
Because you need to say hard like that. That's why I sounded sexual, is the lean in.
So that's what I wanted to say. And next time, let's nerd out about music a little bit. I have some unpopular opinions about music. I've talked to people before. I posted a thing about this. I unironically love the Insane Clown Posse. I think they're fucking great.
I like Nickelback.
You hate Nickelback?
No, I like Nickelback.
He likes Nickelback.
What did Nickelback ever do to anybody?
Exactly. Everyone likes them. Why do they get so much hate? Anyway,
it's just a meme to hate them. It's not like
it is
real
definitely
hate.
There was one that came out recently. There was a TikTok trend where people were like covering their mouth, but then like going this way, and they're singing "Animals" by Nickelback. Like, is this Nickelback? I fucking hate Nickelback.
Animals is Neon Trees, I think.
Animals? That's Nickelback.
Maybe it's a different one that I'm thinking of.
Beside me on the sea, got her hand between my knees, and she controls how fast we go by just how hard you.
Oh yeah, no, we're talking two different Animal songs.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking Animal.
I fucking love ICP. Oh my god, I do. So there's a couple things that like people want to treat them as like demonic or satanic. We should really cover this next time. Sorry, but it's like if you listen to their music, they condemn like bigotry and racism. There's on the Great Milenko album, there's the House of Horrors, and they're talking about one of them's a wife beater who beats his kids too, and they're like, this is why you're going to hell. There's two scenarios that they give, and then the end of it is like, we're packing up, but we forgot Mr. Bigot. Okay, dig it. I can't show you an illusion because we're all packed, but I'll still cut your neck out. How's that? So there's that, and then they talk a lot, about what did I say? Did I say Halls of Illusions? Because that's the name of that song. I think I said something else. Anyway, I said House of Horrors. Yeah, that's not the right one. It's Halls of Illusion.
That's a movie.
But yeah, like a lot of they do a lot of social commentary. They do a lot of commentary about like poverty and wealth inequality, and it just kind of gets lost in translation because they fucking paint their face.
Because the presentation.
Talk about sex and drugs a lot. But yeah,
I'm not against Insane Clown Posse. I'm just like against juggalos. I think that's my issue.
That's a fucking move. Like, the Insane Clown Posse is great. They have the worst fucking fans.
Right.
They really do.
Dude, what is up with that? Wait, we'll get.
That's the same. The same is true of Jesus. Jesus was okay. He's got the worst fucking fans on the planet.
There's the segue. There it is.
There you go.
It all comes
everything together.
See, everyone in the comments, we knew what we were doing. This was planned from the beginning. It looks crazy. It looks like it's all over the place, but it gets back together, and we know what the fuck we're doing. So.
Okay. You're right. We've been over 2 hours and 20. You want to do some kind of outro there, Dadpool?
Yeah. This was a lot of fun.
There we go.
I'm definitely going to have to rewatch Community and see if I can see you in the background, Matt, which I have no problem doing because it's my absolute favorite show in the world. But yeah, thank you everybody for coming. Stay tuned next week. We're going to have Pookie Bear on, and we're going to talk about Mormonism and apparently music. So stay tuned for that. Thank you very much, Matt, for being a part of this. You were an awesome guest. I'd love to have you on another time someday. But yeah, I look forward to your TikToks in the future and any interactions we have. And thank you guys in the comments for unfucking us while we're going through all this. You guys were on point. I appreciate you.
Matt, you want to give us where we can find you and anything you got upcoming in the next couple months? Anything?
Yeah,
you talk about your music video.
My it's not my music video.
Oh, my bad.
It's a music video I participate. It's mine. We can call it mine. That's fine. I didn't even write the lyrics. Okay, I just rapped them. I didn't write them, and I wouldn't even say I rapped. Rap is a really generous word. Jegaysus is the handle. Just think of it like Jesus with more gay in it. I just made that up right now, but I'm going to use that later. Yeah.
They were fishing an awful lot.
TikTok is my main. They were what?
They were fishing an awful lot.
They went on a lot of very exclusive trips.
Yes,
Yeah,
they did.
They did, and spent a lot of time on just that. You can find me with that handle on TikTok, obviously, and then I have a Twitter. I don't use it. I put it there just so nobody took my name because they were spreading my videos out there. So if you want to get on Twitter, you can follow me there too. But YouTube is the new project. I'm gonna launch my YouTube hopefully someday soon. I just need to find time to edit things and find a better setup and find something to talk about. But if you want to, you can go ahead and subscribe. The channel is just Jegaysus there as well. Anywhere, Instagram, Jegaysus, just Jegaysus.
Yeah, YouTube is a whole nother animal. Believe me,
it is.
I feel you.
All right.
Yeah.
We wrapping? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Everybody have a wonderful night. Hug your family.
Chat.
Mwah.